All right, guys, welcome to Press X Podcast, episode 77. Thank you guys so much for being here and being patient as we do the credits roll, whatever. Yeah, so thank you guys so much. So in this episode of the podcast, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. Not dramatically different, just something a little bit different. A bit of an experiment, I guess, to just kind of see what will happen by starting the show off with 5 community submissions, because I'm lacking on the topics to discuss for the episode of this podcast. It's not that it's been somewhat of a slow week, but I pretty much covered everything there was to cover, and there's really not much left to talk about. There are some things, though, I got to tell you, that I have not talked about yet that we will certainly be discussing. One of the things we're going to be talking about is this really, I don't care what anybody says, bizarre situation with Microsoft Studio The Initiative and Square Enix's Crystal Dynamics. I know that that's not like directly a PlayStation topic, but as I said, things are a little bit scarce this week. But I'm definitely trying to involve the community in a big way over the course of this specific episode. You guys have been doing an amazing job, by the way, with the community submissions. Every week I've been, at least for the past 2 weeks, I've been posting on the community tab where you can leave your community submissions, your thoughts, questions, opinions, anything like that. And you guys have been doing great with that. You've been leaving so many. I haven't been able to get to all of them. There's just so many, and a lot of them are really good. And I really want to encourage anybody who has been, interacting with that, leaving your questions, thoughts, whatever. If I don't get to yours, don't give up. I'm going to be posting a new community post every week. So continue to post your stuff there. Any and all questions, opinions, anything you want. So today we're actually going to have a total of 10 community submission questions that I'm going to answer, which I'm actually looking forward to. So the show is going to be a little bit different in that sense. But the 2 main topics we're going to be covering, the first is I want to talk about the initiative, and what's going on there, just because it's a little bit strange. And I just, people have been asking me my opinion on it, and I haven't really given my opinion. So I thought that this would be a good time to do that. And the second topic is based off of what you're seeing with the thumbnail, and I'm sure it's making some people upset, but it's just the truth, where it's like we spent pretty much an hour and a half of last week's podcast episode talking about Microsoft and the rumor that they're gonna make a mega acquisition again. And I was kind of talking, my opinion was like, hey, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Microsoft, they're not messing around. They have an unlimited amount of money to spend on publishers, and it's going to impact Sony. And it's funny because a lot of you guys responded in a significant way where you're like, no, MBG. Look, maybe it's a little bit concerning, but let's not forget, this is what Sony has. And these things that Sony has, these things that Sony does well, money, it's not a thing. They just can't be bought. It's something that's obtained over time. So we're gonna have a conversation about that. Drive by Joe, you're saying, have you thought about a members chat only stream? Would be a nice benefit. I've been looking into some different things, thinking about some different things to kind of expand the membership perks. I don't want to promise anything right now because life's been a little bit hectic and crazy lately. And so it's not something that's been at the forefront of my mind, but I always have these different ideas. Something like that would be a nice benefit. I would have to think about which type of streams to incorporate that in. Maybe like some community streams. I could, have some occasional streams where focus on the community, specifically the membership community. Like you said, do something like that. So there's always things in the works. A lot of you guys are asking about The Last of Us Day. So that's actually a thing. I'm going to go, after I do my member shout out real quick, I'm going to go check out what's going on there because I'm not sure what was revealed. I think people had some crazy expectations. A lot of people were like, they're going to reveal something about factions. They're going to reveal something like an expansion. And I'm just like, they're not doing anything like that. I don't know why anybody would think that. I understand. I do understand why people want that though, because it's like, yeah, when is Naughty Dog gonna, where's this multiplayer? Where's this multiplayer game? Sorry, I gotta get this sorted out real quick, or all the way at the bottom. Okay, so a big shout out to my members, guys. If you want to help support the channel here directly, do me a big favor. First of all, hit the like button. Hitting the like button helps the podcast out. It helps the channel out. It helps get the content in front of more eyes and helps grow the community here, which I think we have an awesome community. You guys are amazing. So hit the like button. If you feel so inclined, become a channel member. Becoming a channel member, it doesn't really have any perks right now. I'm just gonna be real with you guys. I'm only going to encourage anybody to become a channel member if you want to support what I do here directly. I'm hoping, as I said, in the future, we'll expand upon that. And if you don't want to do that, there's always the option to super chat. So, doing a super chat is a great way to help fund and support the channel directly. So feel free to do that if you like. And I'll obviously read the super chats live. But to my Play Has No Limits Plus members, big shout out to Junior Jackson, Samuel Payne, Josh Z, Agile Ice 24, Anthony Ramos, Skin Tight Salmon, PlayStation Pete, RU46N2, Ray, iSiler 18. Thank you, DG Ad, for becoming a member. Really appreciate it, buddy. As I said, this is what helps support the channel directly. I literally could not do what I do here on the channel if it wasn't for you guys propping the channel up and putting your weight behind it and supporting it. So shout out to you, DJ Ad. Appreciate that. Welcome aboard. We have the Play Has No Limits tier. So another big shout out to Shark Gomp, John Renzi, Black Waifus, Adrian D, AWS Asher, Zanarkand Blitzer, Ivanoa Kachofel, Avengers Endgame, Space Gambler Jr., AJ Saeed, Rune Gasoden, JDTV, Quantum Stardust, Sir Speaks a Lot, Ashorty Faye, Ryan Butcher, Big Norman 0518, Whiskey Gaming, Shaky Shako, Tyson Webb 509, Black Manta 1989, Sane JT, Brandon Chad Perez, and Adrian Lupton. Thank you guys so much for the continued support here on the channel. I can't say it enough. Really means the world to me. So yeah, we're going to go over to the blog post in regards to Last of Us Day 2021. I'm going to assume, before I read anything, I'm going to assume that there isn't any major news. It would be fantastic if there was, but again, going based off of how it's been handled before, we're excited to share new digital content, exclusives, merch, and a special photo mode event. Hi, everyone. It's been over a year since we released The Last of Us Part 2, a major chapter in the growing Last of Us universe. It's the same world that we've been privileged to celebrate with the incredibly passionate and ever-growing fan base for 8 years. When we planned this year's event, we aimed to make this day super engaging so we can celebrate the diverse, talented Last of Us community on a global scale. We're very fortunate to have great relationship with our community, and The Last of Us Day is one of our favorite days to share and engage in back and forth dialogue with our fans. Okay, so I guess they're just to cap off the day. Please check back at 8 p.m. Eastern for the Last of Us Day wrap up. So I guess that they're gonna. I don't know if they're gonna have a bunch of things they're gonna reveal throughout the day. Let me see. The Last of Us 2 covers and rarities now streaming and limited edition vinyl by Mondo. Okay, so some music. The Last of Us 2 Joel statue by Dark Horse. That actually sounds pretty cool. Pre-order. The statue is available for pre-order until October 29th. It's going to ship between May and July of 2022. PlayStation Gear Store exclusive merch. The triumphant return of photo mode. And that's it. Yikes. Okay, hey, I told you guys I wasn't like I've seen people pretty much every day since it was announced, that they were going to be doing something, saying it's going to be a game, and I tried to warn everybody. I'm like, guys, Naughty Dog they're not announcing anything, man. They're not. It's not the right time. It's really not the right time. So, yeah, guys, chat, let me know what we just went over. That's as of right now, that's the celebration for The Last of Us Day What do you think of it? Do you feel like it's what you expected? Do you feel let down by it? Were you expecting something more? I said that the most I was expecting when it comes to like a game was maybe like an update on the factions, like just a written update, but we didn't get that either. So, I mean, I'm gonna be totally honest. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know what Naughty Dog is doing anymore. I think like my interest in Naughty Dog as a studio after The Last of Us Part 2 just dropped like like a bag of hammers, man. Um it just dropped, and I've really just been kind of eagerly waiting to see what this multiplayer game is, because I feel like this Last of Us multiplayer game is what's going to bring me back to like caring about Naughty Dog. And I wasn't expecting anything with this. I was, part of me was like secretly hoping like maybe they'll give us a little tease or something, but I don't know, man. I'm starting to think that this multiplayer game that they're working on is way bigger than. I mean, I know it's big, but it just seems like it's not going to be ready like anytime soon. So, yeah. All right. With that being said, though, I also do want to let you guys know. I each week when we have the podcast, it usually goes on for a pretty good amount of time. Like these podcasts easily go over like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, because of the nature of this episode of the podcast. I don't know how long it's going to be. It could be an hour and a half. It could be 3 hours. I'm doing more community submissions than I normally do, so I just want to put that out here up front, because if it ends up being a little bit shorter, then we'll know like, okay, this is what it's like when I do more community submissions. But going forward, what I'm hoping is that when there are these like quiet weeks, when there's really just not a whole lot to talk about in terms of topics, and I've already kind of went over most of the topics for the week and there's not much left over, we'll do more community submissions. And we're going to dive into that right now. Devil Shooter, you're saying The Last of Us 2 gameplay was amazing. Even MBG can't deny that. No, I agree 100%. That's why I'm so excited for this Last of Us multiplayer game, because I actually think the combat scenarios in The Last of Us are some of the most intense and brutal, and it's really intense. Like, I don't know, it's grounded, it's intense. I like that. So the idea of having a multiplayer game that just really kind of takes full advantage of that type of gameplay and those mechanics. I'm hoping like with this Last of Us game, I can create a character and there's like a hub world, and you can go do PvP multiplayer if you want. You can go do missions together. There can be like wave-based modes where you're facing waves of clickers and stuff like that. See, like to me, that would be awesome. Like that would be perfect, So anyway, we're going to dive into the first community submission here. This comes from Johnny1996, and he says, do you think God of War and Starfield will actually be out in 2022? Also, do you think Microsoft will continue to struggle with their studio management this generation? So, double whammy here. First of all, God of War and Starfield coming out in 2022. That's a good question. I feel like talking about God of War, my answer to that is absolutely, I think God of War is coming out in 2022. I just don't see, God of War being pushed to 2023. That just seems ridiculous to me. Not only because it's been in development for a while. I mean, I know that it's like, well, these games can take 5+ years. I get that. But it's just the thing that gets me is Sony was bullish about God of War. Sony was very bullish about it. And they were like, look, this game's coming out the end of 2021. And people were like, what? No, it's not. Like, this game isn't coming out the end of 2021. And Sony's like, okay, you got us. It's not coming out this year. It's actually coming out in 2022. And now it seems like it's either going to come out in summer of 2022 or maybe closer to, I don't know, like September, maybe around that time. I mean, September's still technically summer, but, maybe late summer 2022. So for God of War, my answer to that question is simply yes, I do think it's going to come out in 2022. I just don't see why Sony would want to delay it into 2023. I feel like at that point, being completely honest, it's just, it's a cross-gen game. It's really, people were already disheartened to find out God of War is going to be releasing on both PS5 and PS4. To have a cross-gen game releasing a big exclusive like God of War in 2023, I don't know. That, to me, I just feel like that's going to rub people the wrong way. But yeah, I would actually say, and I'll say this, just talking about God of War releasing in 2022, if this was a PS5 only game, if God of War was a PS5 only title, I would say the chances of it getting delayed into 2023 are much higher, simply because if Sony still is struggling to meet the demand for PS5, if it was a PS5 only game, that makes more sense, but it's not. It's releasing on PS4 as well. So I just think that they're going to try to make sure they release it at the right time. I feel like God of War is the type of game they could drop it at any moment and it's going to do great. But I feel like there's certainly those times throughout the year where it's like, well, when would be the most ideal time to drop a game like God of War? So I think that's coming out. He asks about Starfield. Do I think Starfield's going to come out? And do I think that Starfield's going to come out in 2022? I feel like anybody who's an Xbox fan listening to this, they're not going to like my answer to this because, look, I know it's going to come off like a bit snarky, but it's just my honest truth. I'm not trying to be like an a-hole here, but I'm just being honest. I think no matter what, Starfield is dropping on that date. Guys, what was the date? This is what's crazy to me. They actually dated this game. Isn't it supposed to come out on like November 12th, 2022? Is that the date? Is it 11/11 or 11/12? Somebody let me know. 11/22, 11/11. I'm seeing a couple different ones. I think it was just so weird that they actually put a date on this game. November 11th. I'm literally seeing people say the 22nd and the 11th. I will just go with the 11th. I think it's the 11th. Yeah, so they dated it for November 11th, 2022. And that's so weird to me because it's like, this game's so far out. How do you know? Why would you give a date? You know what I mean? Why would you give a date? And I'm going to tell you why they gave a date. I'm telling you, people are not going to like this answer. I'm just going to shoot straight here. This game's going to drop on that date no matter what because it's going into Game Pass and it's Bethesda. It's Bugthesda. Like, that's just the reality. That's the reality. Bethesda has garnered a reputation of releasing buggy, sometimes near broken games. And people have kind of done this thing where they're like, hey, that's kind of the charm when it comes to Bethesda games. I don't know why. And I feel like because it's going into Game Pass, again, you can get it for $10. And because Bethesda already has the reputation that, well, their games are going to be buggy, I think that the game, regardless of what state it's in, unless it's literally completely unplayable, they're going to release it. They're going to release it. I just don't see it getting delayed. That's why I think they're like, we're just going to date it. Dylan Wood, member for 17 months. This is interesting. Dylan, I've never seen this pop up before. Did you like become a member specifically for 17 months? Or is it letting me know that this is how long you've been a member? I feel like it's letting me know how long you've been a member. This is interesting. I feel like this is a new thing that YouTube's doing. I don't recall ever seeing this. But you're saying the only game I'm excited for is God of War, and I haven't been happy about the game so far this year. Dylan, you're saying yes. Well, dude, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. 2021 for gaming, and I want to ask you, yeah, YouTube is weird, Dave. YouTube is weird. YouTube is always updating stuff without telling. I mean, I'm sure they're telling us, but like, I'm not really paying attention that much, and it just feels like every week there's something changing. Jerome, you're saying Deathloop wasn't buggy case by case. No, that's totally true, Jerome. I'm not trying to make it sound like every game that Bethesda drops is buggy, but with their bigger RPG games like Fallout and Skyrim, like, they're known to be buggy. You know what I mean? I feel like the more contained single player games that they've released, not so much, which is good. But yeah, dude, you're saying Dylan, you were saying that God of War is the only game you're excited for. You haven't been that happy about gaming so far this year. So that's a question I have for the audience, and I want to ask you guys, how has this year felt in terms of gaming in general for you? I mean, I feel like Sony has been doing a damn fine job at supporting the console, giving us content. They've been delivering games. I put out a tweet where it was from, I think, Zubitech, where he compiled all of the games that came out, and it's like, it's not like the hottest year ever. It's not like there's like these insane bangers dropping, but they're good enough to where it's like, looking back, like a game like Returnal, I think it's still my game of the year. Getting Ratchet, getting games like Deathloop, Kenna, it's like that, and I feel like the multi-plat side of things has been okay. It's not that bad. Like, I think it's a pretty good year. I don't think I can call it great. I feel like what would have made this year great is if Horizon dropped, but I think it was an okay year. So, I think what's crazy is that I feel like 2022 is going to make up for whatever was lacking, and then some. 2022 is looking just absurd. It's looking absolutely absurd. I don't know how anybody's going to be able to manage all that. All right, so yeah, when it comes to Starfield, to answer that community submission, I think it's coming out no matter what. I think that the expectation is that Starfield is going to launch relatively buggy, and I think that both Microsoft and Bethesda are okay with that, because it's like, it's expected with a game like Starfield. I think that it would be in their best interest to try to mitigate, obviously, how many bugs there are. The game could be further along in development than we think, and so I don't know. We had like conflicting reports where, what was it, like Jason Schreier? He's like, this game is like nowhere near done or something, because there were people saying that it was going to come out in 2021. I don't know, but I think it's going to drop no matter what. And I don't know, man. Like, I'm really, really interested to see what the response to Starfield is going to be like, because there's a lot of pressure on this game. There's a ton of pressure on Starfield, probably more so than any other game. I feel like Starfield has about the same amount of pressure that Halo Infinite had on it. And then I feel like the pressure on Halo Infinite just kind of, like, people just kind of were like, okay, like, it's going to be good, but I don't think it's going to be the grand return of Halo that people were maybe hoping for. We'll see what happens with Starfield, but I do think it's going to come out. Green Owl Gill, you're saying, what do you think are some 2022 Game of the Year contenders? I think Elden Ring is 100% going to be a Game of the Year contender. I think God of War and Horizon. I'm trying to think of some of the other. I feel like Starfield could be a Game of the Year contender. It really depends on, again, like, if it lives up. I think it 100% could be, though. And I'm sure there's some other titles coming out that like, I know Dying Light 2's coming out. I don't know. Maybe Dying Light 2 could be a Game of the Year contender, possibly. Since it's coming out then, but there's some other. Breath of the Wild 2. Yeah, totally forgot about that game. So Breath of the Wild 2, that's obviously. I feel like there's just some games where it's like, obviously it's going to be a Game of the Year contender, Let me see. I'm just checking real quick to see if there was any updates to the Last of Us thing yet. If they brought anything else out. No, doesn't look like they did. GTA 5 remastered. Yeah, I don't think so. But yeah, the last part of the question that let me see here, that Johnny 1996 had was, do I also think Microsoft will continue to struggle with their studio management this generation? Again, I'm just going to shoot straight. Absolutely, I think they're going to. Yes, I think Mike, and we're going to talk about this later on. I think Microsoft is like, their biggest issue, I don't even think is content. And I think that we can all agree that they're going to have a ton of content. It just seems like they don't know what they're doing. I just don't know how else to put it. They just seem like they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to properly manage studios. They don't know how to properly manage talent. I feel like this is obvious. I just think it's crazy to me that you know, you look at a game like Halo Infinite and it's just, I know people are like, don't talk about Halo if you're not interested in it. Like, no, I'm going to fucking talk about Halo as much as I want. Period. I'm going to talk about Halo as much as I want. And I'm going to tell you that Halo, and specifically 343, I feel like it's become kind of a joke where it's like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know how you get a game that's probably well over $200 million, 250. There were reports saying it was $500 million. And it's like, at what point do you just kind of realize that like something's just so wrong here? Like they just can't produce. They cannot produce. What do you need to produce? And this is where we're going to get into that conversation later. We're going to get into that conversation later. All right. Is PlayStation perfect? Absolutely not. PlayStation is not perfect. No. But there are some things I feel that PlayStation has gotten, they've gotten right. Like they've gotten certain things right and they continue to kind of like hone in on these things. But you're saying Halo is playing amazing? Yeah, well, that's the thing. From my perspective, yeah, I've heard good things about Halo. Like people are basically saying like, yo, they got the most important thing right. It plays great. And don't get me wrong, like gameplay is absolutely king. Like my hope for Halo is that it comes out and at the bare minimum, I'm hoping it gets like an 8 and if it can get like a solid 80 on Metacritic, not that that's the be all end all, it's not, but like I just think it's so weird to me. Like no matter what happens with Halo, if Halo comes out and it's just an absolute masterpiece, that'd be great. But you can't deny like the development hell that this game went through. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's just something we have to kind of identify. And unfortunately, it seems like this is a problem that is continuing to persist within Microsoft and their studios. So we'll talk about that later, like I said. So that's the first community submission. Thank you, Johnny1996. We're going to move on to the next community submission. Dead Sika says, didn't Phil Spencer say that his goal for Xbox wasn't to create barriers and lock off games from other gamers? Yet, with Bethesda and this new big acquisition rumor, wouldn't this go against what Phil said? Do you think Phil truly intends to keep Bethesda games and future acquired games away from other platforms? Well, to be honest, man, I feel like Dead Seek, I feel like this question has a pretty simple answer. You know, it is essentially, I feel like another way you could phrase this question is Phil being honest? And I feel like Phil Spencer as a person, if it like, yeah, I think he would just be like, yeah, I want games everywhere. But Phil Spencer is the head of Microsoft's gaming division. So there has to be like some business oriented decisions that are made. And I feel like when you talk about them acquiring Bethesda and maybe another big publisher, yeah, it goes completely against where it's like, look, we want to bring our games to everyone. We don't want to lock people out unless you're on PlayStation, unless you're on Nintendo, then you're locked out. And that's where essentially what he wants to do is he wants to put the pressure on these other platform holders. He said it himself. He's like, look, Game Pass isn't something that, you know, PlayStation and Nintendo are ready for. And he talks about it in the context of like, I'm going to end up bringing Game Pass to these platforms one day. And I think that that's what it is. It's essentially just a strong arm move. And I just feel like, you know, for optics, Phil's going to say things like this. But if you look at their actions and what they're doing, it's like, you're like, it applies in the context of Xbox, right? Like they don't just want to lock games to the Xbox. They want to bring their Xbox games to PC, to any platform that will allow it. And so he's essentially trying to get this angle to where Sony and Nintendo look like the bad guys. You know what I mean? But that's where I feel like if Microsoft continues on their acquisition sprees the way they are, I feel like that look is going to kind of turn against them, where it's like you can only acquire so many publishers and take away so many games before people are looking at you like, why? Like, now you're just becoming annoying, you know? Um, Dylan Wood, you're saying Halo is not even ready and it doesn't look good, but they're releasing it anyways. Sony would never release a game until it's 100% done. Well, Dylan, again, I can't really speak to Halo because I'm going to be completely honest. I have not been paying that much attention to Halo. I just know that it's like every time I see it or hear it, it's like I'm hearing the gameplay's solid, but there's just things that are not really ready, and there's still a lot of unknowns. But dude, I'm just gonna be real right now. Like I feel like I have to keep saying that because I'm just tired of sugarcoating stuff for people. Like Halo has to knock it out of the park. It has to. I don't care what anybody says. You're out of your mind if you think that, well, Halo can just be mid. It could just be mid. Yeah, that's fine. Like, no. That's not what Halo is. That's not what it's supposed to be. That's like saying, yeah, God of War can just be mid. That's cool. That's fine. Horizon, it just needs to be okay. Like, no, you can't settle for that. And I'm just, my whole thing is like, I would just be so monumentally disappointed if Sony were to be handling a franchise like God of War the way that Microsoft has handled Halo. I would be like, wow, you kidding me? You know, like that's just all it is, you know? And that's why I'm saying, man, like I still have this uneasy feeling about how Halo is going to be received. I'm rooting for it. I don't want it to fail. I don't think it should fail. I think it would be just crazy if Halo comes out and it's like, there it is. You know, like that's it. That's all she wrote. That would be disappointing. I feel like Xbox fans have also, like, to be honest, like they've been, especially Halo fans, they've been waiting for a long time for like a great Halo and the return. And I think it's like, you know, it's been overdue for a long time now. I can stop talking about Halo. I feel like I'm talking about Halo too much. But Dead Sika, just to kind of answer your question, do I think that Phil truly intends to keep Bethesda games and future acquired games away from other platforms? I do, because as I said, I think like what Phil Spencer wants is to get Game Pass onto PlayStation, onto Nintendo. And he knows that the best way he could achieve that, if he ever were to achieve that, is by essentially taking games away from the platform that were once there and continuing to do that. You know, the mindset behind it is, well, if I just keep whittling away, eventually Phil's going to be able to call Sony up and be like, so Jim, you ready to bring Game Pass on? Because we'll just keep buying games and taking it away. And I feel like it's literally, that's kind of like the battle that's happening here. You know what I mean? And so I do think that Phil will make it clear that Xbox's goal and their mission is to bring games to everybody. And they're going to continue to try to point out like, but if a platform doesn't want us, well, then there's nothing we can do about it. But we're going to still buy these games and we're still going to, you know what I mean? So it's like, it is what it is. It's just the game. I got to admit, like from a strategic standpoint, I have to admit, Phil's pretty damn smart for doing this, because what Phil did effectively was convince the parent company, Microsoft, which is the company that has all the money, the Microsoft war chest. He's like, hey, we want you guys to get behind us, believe in Xbox, and give us a lot of money to spend on the Xbox brand. And he did it. He convinced the CEO, Satya Nadella. He's getting Satya Nadella on camera, and he's like, we believe in Xbox. We're 100% behind it, and we're going to keep buying stuff. And that's just the way it is. And if you think about it, like, you know, feels like what's Microsoft's greatest strength? The amount of money they have. What can you achieve with that type of money? You can buy a lot of stuff. You can own a lot of stuff. So I'm not saying that makes it better, but I don't know. But thank you for the question, Dead Seeker. We're moving on to question number 3. One Up World says, do you feel nowadays that gamers are obsessing too much over technical stuff like resolution, frame rate, etc., to the point where we forget to just have fun and enjoy the games? I think this is a great question, because my answer to that is absolutely, I think we're doing that too much. but I think there's a reason for it. I think the reason is because gamers are becoming more educated about this technical stuff than ever before. This information is very easily accessible, and due to the nature of YouTube and just the internet in general, it's really, really easy to learn about this stuff. And there's also it's gotten to a point where companies like Microsoft and not Sony, not so much. Well, maybe Sony to an extent with for sure with the SSD, but Microsoft is like talking about T-flops and using teraflops as a marketing term. And Sony is now talking about SSD and using SSD as a term. And so it's like, it really does kind of show that the two kind of go hand in hand. I just spit everywhere. The two kind of go hand in hand, where as gamers become more educated, the console space is considered the more it's a more casual gaming space, not super casual, but definitely more casual than say like hardcore PC gaming. But even console gamers are now like, a lot of console gamers now know what a teraflop is. A lot of them know what resolution means and what role it plays, right? And frame rate and all this stuff, ray tracing, SSDs, all this stuff. And so the question is like, do I think gamers are obsessing over it too much? Absolutely. I'm 100% guilty of this, man. I remember with the build up, I say I remember like it was so long ago. It was basically last year. Just the build up to the Xbox Series consoles and the PS5. I remember there was just so much talk, and it's natural. I think it's expected, but there was so much talk about teraflops, this SSD speeds, that, and this GPU, this CPU, that, RAM, just everything, man. And it's like, when you ask the question, but what does this result in? Like, what is the end result? What are the tangible, real world results that 99% of people are going to care about? And you realize, well, games are going to look and play great. That's it. What are the differences going to be? Very minimal. You're probably not going to see any. Oh, so what does it come down to? Buy the console you want. Support the brand that makes the games you like, And I feel like the obsession, it is a real thing, and it's natural, with a new console launch and whatnot, but I don't know. I just feel like it really does come down to, you have to look at the games. If the games look good to you and they look appealing, enjoy it. You know what I mean? A game doesn't have to look photorealistic to be good. A game doesn't have to be anything other than appealing to you to matter, Kyrie, you're saying, I'm going to be real. Some of these Xbox takes are not good. I think as gamers, we should try to be more objective. I'm just not seeing it here. Well, look, man, I have trouble with this because I'm obviously biased towards PlayStation. And I guess I just don't know. It's not that I don't know. I guess it's just I've accepted that maybe in the eyes of some people, or even a lot of people, my take on a lot of things regarding Xbox, I've just accepted maybe it's bad. A lot of people just see it as a bad take. And I think that's totally fine. I'm not saying that what I say about Xbox and my opinion on it is the be all end all and how everybody should feel. Absolutely not. All I can honestly say is that this is how I'm left feeling towards Xbox. Like, if you were to ask me a simple question like, do you like Xbox? My answer is like, mostly no. There are some things that they're doing that appeal to me, but mostly no. But that's just it. Is like, I just had a conversation with my friend a couple days ago where he was like telling me why he bought a Series X and why he's just like, because he used to be really in the PlayStation, but now he's like fully in the Xbox, and he said it was because, well, man, like, the truth is there's just these games that they're offering on Game Pass and I save a bunch of money. And he's like, I'm never paying $70 for a game. I'm just not doing it. He's like, that for me crossed the line. And I went to Xbox and I'm going to be playing Forza. I'm going to be playing Back 4 Blood. And I'm subscribed to Game Pass for like $10 a month. And I can unsubscribe at any time and resubscribe whenever there's games I'm interested in. And I'm like, there you go. Like, and I didn't argue with him. I was like, yeah, dude, that's a great reason. Like, that makes total sense. And who would, who would argue with that? Where it's like, if that's what matters to you and why you go to it. But if you were to ask me if that is why I would go to Xbox and why I would play Xbox, my answer is just simply no. And so that's where it's like, I'm not trying to make it come off as like, well, if you're supporting Game Pass, there's something wrong with you. Or if you're supporting Xbox, there's something wrong. No. Everybody's free to do what they want, and they should. I just feel like, for me personally, like, I'll put it to you this way, because I'm really starting to ramble. If you come to my channel, you're looking for somebody who's going to view things like 100% objectively and talk like a robot, like, I'm going to tell you like just the honest, objective truth with zero opinion, you're not going to get that here. And I'm just being honest, like, there's plenty of other channels where there are people who operate like they don't have emotion and like they're just robots conveying the objective, and that's fine. I think that's great. That's necessary. But for me, you're saying recognize your opinion is not most other people's opinion. I literally just did that. I said I may have takes towards Xbox that maybe most people don't feel. But that's just because most people feel a certain way about something doesn't mean I'm going to suddenly be like, well, if most people, it's like most people, I don't know. If most people prefer Coca-Cola and they say, well, I like Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is the best. It's better. I think it's better. And they have their reasons, but I don't like Coca-Cola. I like, I don't know, something else, right? Like, I like orange soda. That's my, it's my favorite. Whatever. It's just kind of like, am I just going to suddenly be like, well, less people like orange soda and they don't agree with why I think Coke isn't good. I guess I'll just say I like Coke, because that's what I should do. That's a popular thing to do. That's all. Here's the thing though, like, I do encourage, and I mean this, I encourage people to let me know, if, if you think my take's bad on something, just, explain why you think it's bad and tell me your side. The thing I don't like is people think that, oh, if I take a dump on MBG, that'll teach them. Like, no, that's not going to teach me anything. Like, if you actually feel like you have a good, valid point to make the point. And there's a good chance, if you do it in a nice way and don't come off as a complete dick, I'll listen and you may actually sway me. You know what I mean? That's all it is. Let me see here. Okay, you're saying, in my opinion, Microsoft needs to chill with buying studios for now. I find it lazy how they rather buy than to push what they already have to be better. I mean, yeah, it's just, I feel like that's just the expectation with, that's just the expectation, I think, with Microsoft these days, is it's like, they've made it clear they want to acquire studios. That's just what they want to do. And whether or not, like, so if I say, I actually feel that way. Like, I think Microsoft is being too reliant on, well, we can just buy this, rather than focusing on, okay, there's something maybe like wrong systemically in your management and your ability to manage that maybe needs to be fixed. And it's not something you can just buy and patch that way. People will come to me and be like, that's a bad take, and be like, I don't care. Like, that's just how I feel. And I actually agree, man. Like, I mean, people say, well, you wouldn't care if Sony did it. Like, I would, but I would also have to say it's fair game now. So, like, people are like, oh, don't act like you wouldn't celebrate if Sony acquired all of Square Enix. Like, dude, I'm literally just going to say Microsoft started it, like, straight up. But I don't think Sony needs to do that. I really don't. Chris B. So I guess somebody has to tell me, Chris B, please, in the chat. Hopefully I'll be able to see it. It's doing that thing again. You remember, it says for 13 months. But I'm assuming, like, did you super chat? Because it's coming up like a super chat, but it's not telling me you super chat. It's telling me you're a member for 13 months. This is interesting. I guess YouTube updated something. So Chris B, let me know. But you're saying it's pretty obvious they are attempting to get Game Pass on PlayStation. Buying ZeniMax offered nothing new to Xbox gamers. All those games were on Xbox. Yeah, you're saying it was free. Really? Really? That's super interesting. So you're telling me that now, if you're a channel member... Okay, hold on one sec, though. Hold on. So I'm noticing... I see it like a super chat. But I don't think you guys see it as a super chat. Do you guys see Chris B, his chat, like it's a super chat in the chat below? Because on my end, it's showing up like that. You do see it. Okay. Because it's not showing. Okay. That's super interesting. I didn't know that. Some people are saying no. Saying it's expanded. This is interesting. Yeah, I guess YouTube updated. But that's pretty cool. I guess it's like a new perk that YouTube automatically implemented. Wait, so now I'm confused. Because Zanarkand Blitzer, you're a member, and it's not showing up like that. Do you have to be a member? It's just an anniversary announcement. Oh, yeah, I think you might be right about that. That's interesting. Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry to get totally derailed, but I'm just like, okay. Interesting. Yeah, I'll just keep an eye on that. But I appreciate that, man. But I think you're right. I think it is obvious that that's Microsoft's endgame. They want to get Game Pass onto PlayStation. I mean, and I dude, I don't know, man. Maybe that's the best way. Maybe that is the win-win, dude. If Sony's like, look, we just want a catered version of Game Pass, I think that would be a win-win. Where it's just like Game Pass that features only Microsoft's studios, you know? It's a free super chat, basically. Yeah, it seems like it. PlayStation Pete, you're saying you are the best YouTuber. Thank you so much for that, PlayStation Pete. I'm glad you enjoy the content. Like, look, dude, I'm gonna be honest, man. Like, I kind of learned recently that there's just a lot of people that don't like me and they don't like my content, and I understand that. Like, I understand that I can have a pretty abrasive personality sometimes, or some people just think I have bad takes, and it's like, I get that, you know, like there are things that I'm definitely not as well-rounded with in terms of discussing the ins and outs of the industry and analyzing it, that I'm working to improve upon, and I want to get better, and I want to learn more. And I'm just also a very opinionated person, and I understand how that can be perceived sometimes, and it can just rub people the wrong way. But I am who I am as a person, and I'm not trying to change who I am as a person just for the sake of, well, I want to be more appealing to people. I want to have more people, like, of course I want to have more people listen to me. Of course I want to have more people come to the channel and subscribe and watch the, just interact with my channel, but I don't want to be fake in order to achieve that. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to be who I am. And so I appreciate you guys saying stuff like that. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, man. So thank you so much. KD, you're saying, hey, MBG, hope you're doing good. Your Xbox takes are all valid. They still need to demonstrate they can make a game as good as Uncharted 2. Thank you. Like, that's my whole thing here, man. Like, I feel like when in doubt, because it's super easy to kind of get totally over involved in these conversations, like to the point where it's like sometimes you lose the forest for the trees. My whole thing is that when in doubt, come back to the games. Okay, the games do the talking. And I know that's like, what Jim Ryan said last year, but in general, for every platform, for every publisher, for every developer, the games do the talking. And I agree with you. I feel like Xbox still hasn't proven anything. That's all it is. Like, they've proven that they can buy studios and they can buy publishers. And they've proven that they can release, like, everybody's talking about like Psychonauts 2. And I'm like, dude, that's not an Xbox developed game, period, end of discussion. That game was made before they were bought by Xbox. That's just the reality of it. Starfield, that's not an Xbox game. That's a Bethesda game. Bethesda made that game. Xbox just bought Bethesda. I'm talking about, like, I want to see Can Xbox do it? Like you said, can they make a game as good as Uncharted 2? Jerome, you're saying, have you not ever played Nintendo games? If so, when did you fall off? Just curious. Did you hear stuff from their fan base? Do you hear stuff from their fan base? So my thing with Nintendo, I don't do Nintendo. I just don't. I fell off many years ago, man. Like I fell off, I think, during the GameCube. I don't know why. Like, you know, it's still part of my, like, my family plays Nintendo and stuff, and, you know, occasionally I'll play some Smash and whatever, but like I really just don't care about Nintendo. I just, like, I don't have a problem with them. Like, I think it's fine. It just, what they do just doesn't appeal to me anymore. That's all it is. It's just that simple. But I realize that Nintendo is, it's its own established thing where, you know, I never expect Nintendo to appeal to me again. I feel like it was just kind of there was a period in my life where I liked Nintendo and I played Nintendo and I enjoyed it. And then I just kind of outgrew it. And I'm like, I didn't like, they didn't bother me. They didn't make me angry and be like, Nintendo wasn't doing what I want them to do anymore. Like, not like that. You know, it really was just like, I'm kind of done. You know, like I'm going to go to PlayStation and Xbox now and see, you know, and just kind of stick there. So that's how it is. Who is your main character in Smash? Solid Snake, obviously. So yeah, I mean, do I hear from their fan base? Occasionally. I mean, there are certainly, you know, obviously I'm sure many of you listening to this are fans of Nintendo. So it's like, you know, I hear from Nintendo fans. They're not like begging me to like talk about Nintendo or anything, but you know, I try. Like for me, it's just, and then like people have asked me to cover Nintendo and get into it, but it wouldn't be genuine. That's the problem. Like that's why I don't cover Nintendo, because if I were to try to cover Nintendo, it would very likely be because like, well, this will get me more views and broaden my channel. But it's like, but in reality, I really am just not interested. You know what I mean? I'm just not about trying to force myself to be into Nintendo. Did I see the cast of the new Mario movie? Yeah, dude. What? I just feel like I'm so disconnected. Like, I didn't know how to feel about that. I'm like, okay, Chris Pratt as Mario. All right. Like, okay. Like, I don't know. Like, this is just so weird. But saying I really should try Breath of the Wild, though. Yeah, I mean, look, there are probably games that if I played them, I'd probably enjoy them, but I don't know, man. There's just something about Nintendo that does not appeal to me. I don't know why. Seth Rogen is Donkey Kong? Wow, I didn't know that. Is that real? That's so weird. That whole thing. Jack Black is Bowser? Oh. Eee. I don't know, man. This thing's... I only saw Chris Pratt as Mario. Are these other ones real? Jack Black is cool, but like, I don't know. See, that's the thing is like, I just kind of don't have any expectation. It's like a Mario movie. Isn't it an animated movie though? I'm pretty sure it's animated. And it's like, okay, like, let's see what happens. I'm sure you're saying Jack Black will do good as Bowser. I'm sure he will. Let me see. Florian, you're saying PlayStation is the orange soda of gaming. You know what? I don't know why I said orange soda. I like orange soda, but root beer is really my favorite. I'm a big root beer fan. So, I mean, you know, there's A&W, Bargs, and what's the other one I'm forgetting? Come on, I can't remember the other. I'm sure somebody will point it out. There's A&W, there's Bargs root beer. There's a bunch of other ones. There's a bunch of root beer brands. Mug, there you go. That's it. Yeah. There's a bunch of like obscure root beer brands though that I've had that are really good. And just root beer is my favorite soda. So yeah, I like to think PlayStation is the root beer of gaming. I think maybe like, I think Nintendo would be the orange soda of gaming. This is implying that Microsoft is the Coca-Cola of gaming, though. I feel like that, I don't know. I don't think, is it though? Is it? Green Owl Gill, you're saying, what other consoles do you have besides the PS5? I have an Xbox One X. I have a PS4 Pro. I do have a Nintendo Switch, believe it or not. Mainly my wife uses it. I don't really use it. And I think that I have a gaming PC. I just don't use it. And I think that's pretty much it. I think I have an original model Xbox One as well. I don't have old systems. I don't keep my old systems. I know some people think I'm like insane, but I just don't do that. Anthony Perez, you're saying Xbox fans get mad, but their studios have a lot to prove. Every fan says they have Game Pass, but never you got to play XYZ. Where are the must plays? Yeah, and I mean, I'm not trying to take away anything from Xbox. Like, it's not like they don't have games that are worth playing. I'm sure they do, but it's just, yeah, I mean, like you said, like there's a difference between like, oh, this is a pretty good game that you might like versus like this is a must-play game. This is absolutely a must-play game. Jerome Montgomery, you're saying Nintendo catered to kids, so most people grow out of it. I mean, I try not to view it that way because it's like, I'm not trying to be like condescending towards people because I feel like that's just rude. Where it's like, I understand, like when I see like grown men that are like super into Nintendo, like I get it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like I'm not judging you. But it's just, yeah, I won't lie. Like there's just a lot of stuff I see where I'm like, I mean, I like kid games when they appeal to me, like it depends on what kind of kid games they're like. I don't view it like that. Like people were telling me like Ratchet and Clank is a kid game. I'm like, it doesn't seem that way to me. So I don't view it through the lens of like, well, this looks like a game a kid would play, so I'm not going to play it. No, like that's not, I don't think that's any way to operate. I think it's just like, does it look like a good game? Does it look like it appeals to you? And it's just a lot of, again, like just most of the stuff I see from Nintendo, I don't know. It could very well be one of these things where like you have to play it to get it. And I'm sure it is. But some of the stuff, most of it just doesn't appeal to me. That's all. And it's not because it's like, oh, it looks like a kid's game. No, it's not that. It just doesn't look like my kind of game. That's all. Because I just feel like that's unfair. That's all I'm trying to say. Like, I don't think it's fair to be like, oh, well, this game looks like a game that kids would play. Like, no, just, it doesn't matter. If you think the game looks good, play it. It's a video game, If it brings you joy and you're having fun, then that's all it's about. Alex Mercer, you're saying, it's a me, Star-Lord. Yeah, dude. I don't think that'll be a line in the movie. Hopefully not, right? But yeah, I think that's how I feel like what they should have done is they should have just shown a little clip from the Mario animated movie and you hear Mario and they don't tell you it's Chris Pratt. They only tell you it's Chris Pratt afterwards and then your mind would be blown, right? Because I feel like now people have a certain expectation. All right, let me see. Andrew, you're saying, are you playing Kenna Bridge of Spirits yet? Also, how do you feel about Dr. Pepper? I actually love Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper's great as well. I'm not playing it yet because I'm actually waiting to get a physical copy of it. I don't feel the need to rush into playing it because I'm going to have plenty of time, until like Horizon comes out. So I don't want to kind of like play everything at once. I'm still making my way through Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut. Like I am just neck deep, shoulder deep, I guess, in that game right now, and I'm I'm just making my way through it, doing everything, and so I am gonna end up playing Kenna once I'm finished, probably, and I'm gonna get a physical copy of it. So, saying Mountain Dew is your favorite? Yeah, I like Mountain Dew as well. Not as much. Like Mountain Dew's it's a bit much for me. It's okay though. Mountain Dew, the reason why I don't like Mountain Dew is because it just tastes like it's like all soda's bad for you, but Mountain Dew in particular, when I'm drinking that, I'm like, this, I know this isn't good for me. Like this is real bad, like just straight chemicals almost. But you have 700 hours in Ghost of Tsushima. Jeez. I think right now, since I bought the director's cut, I think I have like 60 or 65 hours into it, that's a lot for me. Unintended Studios, you're saying loving my Series X so far, although I've really only played PS1, PS2, and original Xbox games on it so far. LOL. Deathloop still has my full attention. Yeah, I mean, I'm never gonna like judge anybody for the reason why they buy a console. Like if you bought an Xbox Series X to play backwards compatible games, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know, the only time I feel like it becomes a problem is when people make it sound like that's all that people should expect. Like, no, there should be more on offer. You know what I mean? And that's coming, and that's good. So, Jackrabbit, you're saying just got my PS5 and this controller is going to be the new standard. Mark my words. Astro, Miles, Demon Souls, they all feel so good in your hands, dude. 100%, man. That's one of the things. Like, I've gotten so accustomed and so used to the features that the DualSense offers, that like when it's not there, I actually notice it. It's pretty weird. It's not weird. I mean, I guess it's to be expected, but I just kind of find myself like if I'm just like playing like a PS4 game or whatever and it's not there and I'm like, oh, you know, when there's no like resistance at all on the triggers, I kind of notice it now and I'm like, huh. So it's definitely made an impact. By the way, guys, I'm going to continue with these community submissions before we move on to the two main topics that I want to discuss. Please hit that like button for me, okay? We have over 850 people here. Let's see if we can get to 450 likes. I would really appreciate it if you guys could make that happen for me. And we also have... Okay, we also have Michael. You're saying, I'm a little behind, but actually your opinion is shared by the majority of people since Sony has way more fans than Xbox. I'm talking worldwide. Well, yeah, I mean, my whole thing is like, if that's true, that's great. Like, I don't say what I say hoping that like, well, I hope what I'm saying aligns with what most people think. No, I'm just saying like what I'm saying because it's really how I see it. It's what I'm seeing. It's how I'm perceiving it. I don't, I'm not saying all of my takes are golden or whatever, or like they're all super foolproof. But there might be some truth into what you're saying. But there's also, I always expect there to be people who don't agree, and that's fine. That's fine. But thank you for that, man. Okay, so the next community submission comes from Stinky Nacho. It's a hell of a name. He says, do you like the overall atmosphere the PlayStation 5 brings compared to PS4? The UI, menu music, overall vibe, and etc. I love my PS5, but it just sadly doesn't get me excited like my PS4 did, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because I'm older now. I don't know. But PlayStation just doesn't get me excited like it used to, and I was wondering if you or anyone else felt the same. Thank you for your time. So I thought that this was a pretty unique question. Because I actually know exactly what he's talking about. And I'm going to be honest, I feel like the PS4 did do a better job in terms of, I feel like the PS5 UI is much cleaner. Like I personally think it's much cleaner. I like it. I always liked the PS4 UI. I thought it was a little bit cluttered, just a little bit cluttered. But it was definitely got the job done. But my whole thing is like, I remember the music that would play when you were just kind of sitting at the menu. It was more noticeable, but it wasn't like, I don't know. It's more memorable to me. And that could just be because it's like, yeah, I'm getting older and whatnot. And like, I'm remembering the days when I turned the PS4 on. I don't know. It could be that, but, I like the PS5 UI. If I'm not mistaken, somebody can tell me this in the chat. Didn't Sony say that they were inspired by Dark Souls, specifically the Dark Souls bonfires and like the music and how it's just like this very calm, restful place, and they kind of like wanted to mimic that a little bit. I feel like I remember reading that somewhere, and I thought that was like just the coolest thing in the world. That's kind of like how the PS5, not the PS5, but the PS4 menu, it just kind of makes me feel like that. Like, I don't know. It could, like, when he talks about maybe like not having as much fun or just like he feels like it's not as exciting. That very well could be just maybe you are getting older and you just video games are different to you now than they were. I feel like that's just kind of normal with anything really, but I do agree. Like, I kind of wish that the music and just the sound of the PlayStation 5 was a little bit more in line with the PS4, but I've gotten so used to it that it's like it's different, and it stands out. And I'll always, like, anytime I hear it, I'll be like, oh, that's the PS5, towards anytime I hear the PS4, I'm like, oh, that's a PS4. But I don't know. There are just certain aspects of the PS4's UI that I do kind of miss, and it seems like in Sony's attempt to kind of revamp the UI with the PS5, they maybe missed the mark a little bit in some areas. As you can see, they're fixing that. Sorry, guys, I'm parched. All right. So our final community submission before we move into the topics comes from Ollie Smith. And he says, based on the recent showcase Sony held and the fact that there was some disappointed fans expecting more, do you think the reason for that was actually to do with how much of a high last gen was for Sony, and even low expectations are naturally quite high now in comparison to the competition? And could this potentially turn around to hurt us as customers and fans, where Sony starts to change things up, thinking we are unhappy when in reality we actually are happy? It's just Sony has done too well in a way. We have eaten too well and become spoiled. I think this is a great question, honestly, because I think that it perfectly sums up kind of what we're seeing. Toxic Fanboy, you're saying Xbox bad for buying studios, but Sony good. Dude, come on. Like, this has to be a troll, right? That's a troll. I'm not even, dude, it's a troll. I know, it's a troll. Nobody's saying that here, man. Like, I love this argument. Real quick, I love the argument where it's like, well, how come it's okay for Sony to buy studios? Like, okay, can we just acknowledge that there is a monumental difference? I know it's a troll, but still, there is a monument, because some people don't see it this way. But let's be honest, there's a monumental difference between, okay, we're going to buy Bethesda or Square Enix or Capcom or whatever, versus we're going to buy Firesprite. We're going to maybe try to buy Bluepoint. We're going to buy Housemarque. Like, surely you see the difference. There's no way you don't see the difference, right? And that's all you need to focus on. Chris B, you're saying the three systems I was excited for were the N64, Dreamcast, and PS3. PS5 doesn't come close in terms of excitement. Well, what's interesting, though, is when you talk about those consoles, though, those consoles are many years old. Do you think age could have something to do with it? Do you think so? Do you think maybe getting older, Blue Box is on another level, though, MBG. Yeah, did you guys see the tweet that PlayStation put out? PlayStation put out a tweet. It was that part of the last trailer from for Death Stranding Director's Cut, where Norman Reedus basically looks out the door, and there's like just a black abyss, and that the whale comes up. They tweeted out that little clip, and I'm like, huh, dude, okay, real quick. I know I'm going to answer this question from Ollie Smith, but I got to say this. I meant to bring this up earlier. People are now fully engrossed into Death Stranding Director's Cut, and they're discovering some Easter eggs. Do you know one of the Easter eggs that people found? There is a scene that plays with Sam when he's in his room, where in the shower, you see a silhouette of a BT, and it's like really atmospheric. It's really scary. It's very horror-esque. And the BT starts twitching its head, and it's clearly a callback to PT. Like, it's clearly supposed to remind you of Lisa from PT, and I'm like, that is awesome. I don't know if that means anything, but I just thought that was really cool. It was nice to see that. Jay Pierce, you're saying I finally got a PS5. Best Buy had 75 digital and 75 disc. I got one MBG. I'm glad to hear that, Jay. Yeah, there were some major restocks that were going on with Best Buy, and it was crazy the lines that were outside. So I'm sure there was a lot of people who really they really want to. You're saying no spoilers, please. I apologize, man. Like, to be honest, I have no idea what context that was in. If that makes you feel any better, like, I literally just saw a clip of it. I don't know if you have to play through a certain part of the game or how to trigger it. I have no idea. So, plus me describing it doesn't do it any justice. You got to see it for yourself. So I don't think it was a spoiler or anything. But all right. So to answer Ollie Smith's question, basically what he's saying is like, look, is the expectation for Sony higher than it realistically should be because of how well they did during the PlayStation 4 generation? And I think that the answer to that question is absolutely yes. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, he was basically framing the question like, could this hurt us because Sony starts to change things and the way they do things because they're like, well, this isn't good enough, when in reality it's like, wait, no, actually we did like that. We were just being too hard on you. I get that angle, but what I think is that, look, I think that Sony annihilated with the PS4 generation. I don't think anybody can deny that. I think even Xbox fans acknowledge, like, yeah, Sony kind of totally knocked it out of the park, especially in the last couple of years before the generation came to an end. And Sony had just so much momentum going into the PS5. You know, people are always asking me, like, why does it seem like the media is like against Sony, or like everything that Sony does, it's like it's always done under a microscope and people are zooming in and they're finding like any little thing they can to like complain about when it comes to Sony. And I think that that's just the nature of, look, Sony is on top. They've been on top. And because of that, there's just a much higher expectation. People, there was a lot of people who were coming to me and like, dude, why are people acting like Xbox's E3 was like the greatest thing they ever saw in gaming? Like, it was the greatest show they ever saw, the greatest E3 showing from any company ever. And I'm like, that's because they actually had a good show, and the expectations are just different for Microsoft. The expectations for Microsoft were a lot lower, and so it's a lot easier. Like, they have a much lower bar to clear. When people go to Sony, they're looking for the best of the best. That's just the way it is. They're looking for those big AAA PlayStation Studio games that you're only going to get at PlayStation. And I think that's totally fair. And so when people look at this September showcase, I don't think anybody was feeling disappointed and like, oh man, they showed God of War and that was disappointing. Or like, man, they revealed Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine. I think people were happy. But in general, people who were feeling left feeling disappointed. The reason why I think they were left feeling disappointed was because they were like, oh, I thought this was going to be like an hour-long barrage of just like, new first-party games and new partnership games. And instead it was like, okay, we have a big game up front, KOTOR remake, exclusive. Okay, that's great. And then the last 10 minutes, you're going to see God of War, GT7, Spider-Man 2 is getting revealed with a short trailer, and then you're going to get a CG trailer for Wolverine. Again, that's like enough to get most people excited and be like, wow, that was awesome. But again, like, you talk about PlayStation fans having such high expectations. I think a lot of the expectations were like, well, I thought we were going to get more, and he says, have we eaten too well and become spoiled? Yes. I do think that, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think that it's the reality of it. The truth is, like, we're human beings. When we get used to having something, we just begin to expect it to be there. Even if we could be as gracious as we want, but it's just human nature. It's nature in general, And so the expectation from most gamers, especially PlayStation fans, is Sony's done such a good job delivering PlayStation titles, and they've been such high quality, and we all like them so much, and we're so used to getting them that's just what we expect. It's the reason why before the September showcase, every week, it seems like, okay, this is going to be the big event. Okay, it's not this week, it's going to be next week. Okay, it's not this month, it's going to be next month. It's because we're literally conditioned, because Sony puts on these big elaborate shows. And like last year, we got 2 big shows. So like in a way, we're conditioned where it's like, it's going to happen again, right? Right. And, that's just how it is. So, to kind of answer your question, do I think that it could hurt us? I think the only time it hurts us, and I feel like I'm a good example of this, is like when you just allow your expectations to become too high to where it's like you maybe got to realize, like, look, things were great. Things have been great. They can't be great all the time. They can't be 100% all the time, So, but yeah, thank you for all of the submissions. If we have time, let me see. How long are we into this podcast? So we're about an hour and 20 minutes. Okay, so we're making pretty good time. I do have 5 more submissions, but before I do that, I want to get into the 2 main topics that I wanted to discuss with you guys, if you don't mind. So I actually have to look this up real quick. I did have it up. I accidentally exited out of it. Exit out. Yeah, sorry. Let me, just being thrown for a loop right now because I thought I had it up. I don't. I want to find it. All right, so the initiative. We're going to talk about this initiative situation because this has caused a bit of controversy. It seems like every week there's something that people are getting all worked up about. And in this case, it has to do with Xbox. And this situation is fascinating to me because there's basically 2 sides here. So let me read you what this tweet says first so you know the context. Microsoft's new quadruple A studio, The Initiative, tweeted out on September 23rd, Perfect Dark update. We are partnering with Crystal Dynamics, the world-class team behind character-driven games such as Tomb Raider, to bring this first-person spy thriller to a new generation. The teams couldn't pass up a chance to work together. We are still in early development, but incredibly excited to use this unique opportunity to deliver on the vision for Perfect Dark. Okay, so this is weird for one main reason. Okay, the weirdest part about this is the fact that they're announcing it publicly. Because people are going to say, well, MBG, this isn't really an uncommon thing. Studios outsource all the time, and that's essentially what the initiative is doing right now. They're outsourcing work. They're outsourcing Crystal Dynamics to help them develop this Perfect Dark game. And you're correct. Outsourcing is totally normal. In fact, Sony does it literally all the time with pretty much all of their games. But what makes this unique is they're making a big deal out of it, or at least they're announcing it like, hey guys, we want to let the world know that Crystal Dynamics is helping us with this game. Now, there could be before anybody jumps to conclusions, this could be a good or bad thing. Okay? I feel like that needs to be said. I know people are going to assume that I'm going to jump on this and be like, the initiative sucks. They don't know what they're doing. They need to recruit help. That's just one side of the coin. We don't know. But I will tell you this. This is, in my opinion, the singular most important point I'm going to make when it comes to this. If you were to ask me, hey, MBG, do you think that fans should be worried about the initiative as a studio and that they should be concerned about this Perfect Dark game because they're recruiting Crystal Dynamics and they're announcing it? Or do you think that this is going to be a good thing and it's actually going to make the game even better? My answer to that is simply, I have no idea. No one knows. All we can do is assume. But I will tell you, when I look at Microsoft Studio history and the troubled development cycles with a lot of their games, and just this recurring theme surrounding Microsoft where they just seemingly have trouble developing games. All right? It makes me feel less confident that this is a good sign. That's all I'm saying. I'm just simply saying that based on their history, I'm less inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm more inclined to believe, it seems like things are not going really well over there at the initiative, and they're having some development issues. And so Daryl Gallagher, he's the head of the initiative. He actually came from Crystal Dynamics. So, it could just be a situation where he's like, maybe I'll give them a call and we'll see if we can do this. But what's just so weird to me is that they announced it. I feel like they didn't need to do this, and I'm going to be real with you guys right now. I feel like the reason why they announced this was because they realized that this was going to come out. Like, people were going to pick up on this, and there was going to be headlines written. And I think they just took the approach where it's like, well, if we just frame this as a good thing, like, we're excited about this, this is good, then it can't be perceived as a bad thing. Like, they're getting out in front of it. I think it's pretty smart, actually. Did you see that the big guy at the initiative went to Insomniac to work on the Wolverine game? Yeah, dude, there have been quite a few people who left, like, Sony. I think there was at least one or two people. I think Drew Murray was one of them, where they left to go to the initiative, and within a year or two, they left and they're like, you know what, I'm out. And they went back to Sony. And you're saying they're crunching? There's no way. This game isn't even remotely close to coming out. They're not crunching. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're working hard, obviously, but they're not in like that crunch mode where it's like, we got a deadline. Like, dude, there's not even a release window for this game. We haven't even seen a single glimpse of gameplay with this title. And so I'm just going to be 100% right now. Like I said, I'm just going to shoot straight. If this was Sony, and it was, let's just say, so I'm going to use Naughty Dog as the studio. I'm going to use Naughty Dog or maybe Sony Santa Monica, because when this studio, the initiative, was created, you guys remember, it was a quadruple A studio. They're going to be making triple A masterpieces to compete with the God of Wars and the Last of Us's and the Ghost of Tsushima's, right? And the Horizons. That's what this studio was built to do. That's what they were positioned as. That's what we were told. And I understand that, dude, let's get something straight. That ain't easy. I give Microsoft all the credit in the world for doing this. Even if this thing blows up, okay, and this is a complete disaster, I want it to be known I am giving Microsoft a ton of credit for being like, we're going to build a new studio. We're going to dump money into building a new studio because this is a very expensive endeavor, and we're going to try. We may fail hard, but we're going to try to do it. Got to give them credit there, all right? So I'm not trying to take that away from them. However, maybe I'm a pessimist. Maybe I'm a glass half empty kind of person. Excuse me, when it comes to Xbox, but I don't think this is a good sign. I just don't. Because if this was Naughty Dog or Santa Monica and they're like, we're recruiting Crystal Dynamics, I'd be like, what? Why? Like, why? Why do you need Crystal Dynamics? Really? Like, what? And I just feel like it's positioned in a way where it makes it super easy if you're an Xbox fan to be like, no, this is good. This is good. It's fine. It's only going to make the game better. And you know what? Here's what I want to say. If that game, Perfect Dark, right now, as I'm speaking, if that game is in the worst development hell imaginable and it's an absolute dumpster fire, and that's why they hired Crystal Dynamics, then I do think that's a good thing. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying that it's a good thing because that means they acknowledge there's a problem and they're bringing in, hopefully, a team of people that can solve that problem and save it and fix it. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying if this really is the worst case scenario, then this can only be a good thing. You know what I mean? I feel like I don't know. I don't know if Crystal Dynamics was like, yeah, we're going to announce this. Like, you're going to, like, one of the things is if we're going to help you, you got to announce it. But it's just, it's really, really strange to me that this is something that's happening because I don't know. It just makes me feel like, does Microsoft truly have a management issue where like they just can't get, I'm going to be blunt. They just can't get their shit together. Like, is that pretty much the situation at Microsoft Game Studios where they just have so many studios and people are doing stuff and it's just they can't get the right people and it's like shit's just all over the place? Is that really what it's like? Because I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a little weird to me. That's all. But I hope it works out for the best in the end. I hope that when we do see because Perfect, believe it or not, like I'm not really that excited for Perfect Dark, but I'm definitely interested enough where it's like, yeah, I want to see some gameplay. You know, this is supposed to be the big AAA Microsoft studio. Let's see what they can do. So hopefully, if it's a dumpster fire, they can fix it. If it's not a dumpster fire and it's actually going along great, then maybe that's why they announced it. Because it's like, hey, dude, we got Crystal Dynamics now. This game's going to be even bigger and better than it was before. That'd be great as well. So hopefully that's what it is. We don't know. We'll find out. I do want to say this as well real quick. This studio was formed in 2018. We're going into 2022, and we have not seen a single glimpse of this game. We got a CG trailer, which is fine, but we haven't seen anything of this game. I don't know. You're saying, come on, MBG, this one is a wild reach, man. It might be true, but the evidence is flimsy as hell. Well, it depends what evidence, like, what are you talking about? Because I think I'm being pretty fair and balanced. I'm saying it could go either way. My gut is telling me that it's not looking good. That's what my gut's telling me. My gut could be wrong. Jerome, you're saying they only have 75 workers. If they want the game out in time, they had no choice. It's AAA. That's true. Yeah, so that is an interesting aspect of it where it's like from what I understand with the initiative, they are a smaller team. Like they're not like they're not the size of a team that could make a big AAA game like God of War. Like they would need to be substantially bigger. Maybe that is it. Maybe it really is just like we need more manpower to make this happen. And that, again, that's why it would be a good thing, because it's like if that's really the only thing standing between you and actually making this game as ambitious and as big as it can be, then that's a good thing. But we'll have to see. Let me see. Steady Flow, you're saying this is the difference, my guy, because it's not just outsourcing. They said in the tweet they are partnering. So Crystal Dynamics has more to say how the game will come out. The initiative team couldn't handle. That's true. That's true. There is a difference between partnering and outsourcing, I guess you could say. Yeah. They did explicitly say, like, we are partnering. So, yeah, I mean, I guess at that point, it's pretty much split down the middle, right? Like, they have pretty much just as much creative control over the title. I don't know, man. I'm going to be interested to see how that turns out. Jay Pierce, you're saying, MBG, did you watch the Nintendo Direct? It was better than Xbox's show. They got a 9 out of 10. I think it's more like a 7 out of 10. I actually didn't watch the Nintendo Direct, so I cannot speak to it. Let me see. Fabrice, you're saying the initiative have 70 people and they are the youngest Xbox studio and they want to grow slowly. If you want to make AAA games with only 70 people, good luck. The only studio that have a hard time right now, 343 Industries. Well, my thing is like if that's the case where it's like this studio, they're very young, they're the youngest Xbox studio, you know, they only are 70 to 75 people strong. I feel like if that's true, then they shouldn't try to reach for the stars, you know, on their first game. Um, I thought that the Initiative's first game was going to be a new IP. I thought that that would just be the best thing for them to pursue, but apparently that's not what Phil. I don't know whose decision it was. I don't know if it was the Initiative's decision or Phil, where it's like let's make let's do Perfect Dark. Let's do Perfect Dark reboot. So it's like, okay, you're playing it a little bit safer because you have an established IP. Granted, it's going to have to be completely rebooted. And so I don't know. I don't know. It could go either way. I just think that it's strange. At the very least, it's an odd thing. I feel like you don't see something like this that often. That's why I put it as the Xbox studio makes an odd announcement, because that's an odd announcement. I don't recall the last time two major studios partnered together on a game. I'm sure it happens. I don't know. Chris B, you're saying Hassan is giving MBG the inside track. Nah, man. Nah. Guapzilla, you're saying the Initiative equals quadruple A. Remember that. Well, we'll have to see. This actually gives me a good segue. This is honestly, this makes for a great segue into my next topic, which it's not a topic I'm going to spend too much time on, but I think it's one where there's a point I have to drive home, especially after the conversation we had during last week's podcast. Before we do that, guys, do me a favor, please hit the like button. We're almost at 500 likes. You guys are crushing it. Green Owl Gill, you're saying any known updates on Elder Scrolls 6 yet? Not that I know of. I know. Look, I already know that people are going to be like, dude, this is a PlayStation podcast, and you spent like the whole time talking about Xbox. Like, dude, these are the topics. That was pretty much the only major topic I have other than the one I'm going to talk about. And it's an Xbox topic. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. You want me to talk about the stuff that Naughty Dog announced today? Like, there's nothing to talk about. It's just how it is. There's just going to be some times where it's not going to be fully PlayStation focused. It can't be. You know what I mean? It's just how it's going to be. And, you know, my thing is I don't want to discourage anybody from listening. It's just my recommendation is, if you really don't want to hear about like Xbox anything and that's just not what you're into, then don't feel bad. It's not like it's going to be like this every single week. It's just this week in particular. I got a lot of submissions that are Xbox related, and my main topic was Xbox related. However, the next thing we're going to talk about, while Xbox is part of the conversation, this is very much a PlayStation focused topic. And then after I talk about this topic, we're going to go into the final 5 community submissions. So I want to, you look at my title, I say Sony has something that can't be bought. And I think in my thumbnail it says like, they can't buy this. And I feel that it's important for me to bring this up because, as I said on the last episode of the podcast, on PXP episode 76, for an hour and a half, we talked about a major acquisition rumor that was making the rounds, that apparently Microsoft is gearing up to buy another publisher. People saying Take-Two and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, I know. It's like we're getting tired. Like, can we just stop with the acquisition talk? Trust me. I feel the same way, but I was just being honest when I was talking about how I believe this could negatively impact PlayStation and the PlayStation community if this is true, and talk about the potential implications. We talked about how Sony would maybe respond by buying their own studios, and could Sony buy a publisher? But there was an angle that I didn't address, and I saw a lot of you guys in the comments actually kind of put your full weight behind it, where you're like, can we just take a moment here to talk about and acknowledge that there are things that PlayStation has done just as a video game brand that cannot be taken away, that money simply cannot buy. I feel like this is an incredibly important point to make, because I see quite a few audience members. I don't want to say that they get frustrated, because they're engaging with the content, but they will tell me, they'll be like, MBG, man, who cares? Like, who cares what Xbox is going to buy? Xbox is going to buy who they're going to buy, and that's just how it's going to be. But you know what they're not going to get? God of War Ragnarok. You know what they're not going to be able to buy? Horizon Forbidden West. Do you know this entire section of the video game industry called PlayStation Studios? They can't be bought. They can't be taken away. They can't be pushed to the side. And they can't be overtaken as long as they continue to do what they do best. Now, there's always the chance that they could falter. They could release some duds. They could drop in quality. These are all possibilities. And I just feel like, I see so much conversation come my way where it's like, but MBG, what if they buy this studio? But MBG, Game Pass though. But MBG, Microsoft's, bank account. And I'm just like, but God of War Ragnarok? But Naughty Dog? But Ghost of Tsushima? But Horizon Forbidden West? But even Returnal? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I was kind of surprised at how many people kind of came out and were like, dude, Microsoft can buy Ubisoft. Microsoft can buy, hell, even I don't know that they could. I'm not sure if there's like rules against it, but they could buy Capcom. And I get that it's like there's just something fascinating to me about that line of thinking, because it really kind of is like, you know what, you're right. Like, if Microsoft is going to acquire another major publisher, there's not a damn thing in the world I could do about it. You know what I mean? And so it's like, maybe at this point in time, it's just better to focus on what Microsoft couldn't possibly purchase and how much that's actually, like, how big of a staple that really is, how big of a foundation that actually is for PlayStation. I know, like, there's some people who maybe are going to hear this and take it, well, yeah, dude, you're just coping. It's like, okay, I guess I'm coping, sure, like, if that's how you want to view it. But I feel like it's just the truth. I feel like, I hear people say all the time, they're like, show me a game that looks like God of War. Show me a game that Xbox has that looks anywhere close to Horizon or God of War. Just anything, or even Ghost of Tsushima. And it's just like, it doesn't exist. But they have all these studios. It's like, it still doesn't exist. But if they buy it, it still doesn't exist. And that's not to say that Microsoft needs to copy Sony, because they don't. It's just, it speaks to the greatest strength, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of a lot of people who are, talking about this, that Sony has. That you can't, the initiative serves as proof that you can't just throw money at a problem. You can't buy what Sony has, because what Sony has is a culture, is a group of individuals who work in harmony, who understand what needs to be done to achieve certain things. They've gone through the motions. They did their time. It's called experience. And these are just things where you can't, like, it seems to me like Microsoft even tried to do that. Like, they literally were trying to poach top tier developers from Sony Santa Monica, Insomniac, Naughty Dog, and some of them left because they probably got offered more money. And they were like, yo, I'm not saying this is what they said, but it's just very telling, in my opinion, that within a year or two, they left and went back to PlayStation. It's interesting to me that Insomniac Games ended up with PlayStation. It's interesting because they tried to go out there, man. Insomniac Games tried to go out there. They wanted to partner with other publishers and release their games on their platforms. And in the end, they came back home. They came to PlayStation, and they were bought for like $229 million. And that is insane to think about. I'll tell you, Sony got away with the steal there. I'm sure Ted Price is kicking himself in the ass being like, I can't believe I sold for $229 million. Like, these guys are making Spider-Man 2 with Venom and Wolverine, and they just produced Miles Morales and Ratchet and Clank. Biggest deal ever. And it's like, I bet you a big reason why Insomniac did that is because they actually, like, they realized, like, there's something here at PlayStation. There's like a core at PlayStation that you just can't get anywhere else in the industry. And I feel like that's what I'm just trying to focus on right here, you know? You're saying Xbox Era said that Insomniac have another Marvel game and it's multiplayer? Dude, that's too... Come on, what? That's too much. And like, I'm not trying... Here's the thing about this conversation. I'm not trying to say this as like, see, this is why Xbox sucks, because they lack this. But the harsh reality likely is that what I just described, that very thing, I don't know what you want to call it. Like, you could call it whatever you want, but that thing that just can't be bought, that it takes time and it takes passion and it takes risk. It's risky. Like, you have to go out there and try and learn, like, the hard way to come back stronger and do it right, do it better the next time. This thing that you just can't buy, you can't put it in integrity. Yeah, you could call it that. You could call it whatever you want. It's almost like this is the very thing that's missing there. And that's why I almost feel like at some point Microsoft realized that. I feel like Microsoft realized, like, we can't do it. So we're going to go buy Bethesda. They can do it. Talent. Yeah. I'm being like, this is where I'm cutting through all of the bullshit. And it's like, if you're an Xbox fan and you love the fact that Microsoft now owns Bethesda, that's great. That's why they bought them. They want you as an Xbox fan to be excited, but you better believe that is a mark of submission. That is a mark of, we can't do this ourselves. We literally need to buy an entire publisher who already knows how to do it. And honestly, if Sony was like not a platform holder, if Sony wasn't selling consoles and didn't have their own ecosystem, I bet you Sony would be the type of company 100% that Microsoft would want to try to acquire. And could you blame them? They make some of the best games in the industry, right? So you're saying ZeniMax was for sale. Obviously, they took that opportunity. I'm not saying it was a bad thing. If anything, it was a smart move by Microsoft. But I'm just saying, we can't ignore like what this represents. You know, people have been spending so much time telling me, but Xbox has this and Xbox has that. I'm like, but Xbox hasn't produced, period. End of discussion. The only thing Xbox has produced is how to give gamers the best perceived value. Outside of that, what have they actually produced? To whereas I'm looking at Sony and I'm like, dude, I just got like, I looked at this list of games that came out since the PS5 launched and I'm like, it's practically overkill. This is what PlayStation Studios has produced. Look at the PS4 generation. That's what PlayStation Studios produced. And this is where I just get frustrated because I'm not saying that like this means you shouldn't ever criticize Sony. It's not about that. Sony deserves certain criticisms, but I'm just frankly tired of seeing people kind of come to me and be like, well, let me tell you why Xbox is actually the best. I'm like, let me tell you what they haven't produced yet. Okay, let me tell you what Sony has produced, and that's all it comes down to, because people are always talking about, well, I'm spending this much for my games, and I get the best value and the best deal here, and it's like, look, yeah, Microsoft, they're finally launching some games. You're bringing out Horizon, you're bringing out Halo, that's great. It's nice to see them finally produce something, but really, we're going to look to another Halo, Gears, Forza to sit here and say they did it? No. Let's go into 2022. Let's see what 2022 brings, because from where I'm sitting, Sony's producing. Sony's producing with Horizon. They're going to be producing with God of War, and there's a lot, I'm sure, in between that as well. And I'm sure Microsoft, if there's one thing Microsoft has made clear, we got Redfall, we got Starfield, and I'm like, you know what? There we go. Xbox is finally stepping up. They had to spend a lot of money to do it. Let's be real. They had to spend a lot of money to do it, but they're stepping up. And I'm like, okay, let's see. Is Redfall the answer to Horizon? Is Starfield the answer to God of War? Let's find out. That's what's exciting to me. But this is where it's just, I see so much conversation about things that are, they're valid talking points and they're valid points in general. But it's just, I feel like when you get down to the nitty gritty, you get down to the real talk, which is, let's talk about the games though. You know what I mean? It's just, it's not comparable. It's just simply not comparable. And so for the past couple of years, I basically sat back and watched Xbox fans get excited about studio acquisitions, get excited about studio purchases. And I think that's fine. That is very exciting. I got excited, and I'm not even playing on Xbox. I'm like, that's crazy. That's huge, right? I get excited when Sony does that too. But at this point, let's let the excitement die down and look at the results. Let's see who's going to produce and how they're going to produce. And maybe, you know what? Just a couple months from now, or, the next couple of months, maybe Microsoft's going to come out hard. They're going to come out left hook, Forza, right hook, Halo. Let's see how it does. Like I said, we're going into 2022. It's going to be crazy. They're going to duke it out, and I'm looking forward to it. But I just feel like there is something there within PlayStation Studios DNA that you can't buy it. You can't buy that. You can have all the money in the world. You can't just buy that. That's something that's earned. It's not bought. Period. And I feel like that's just how it is, And I think, and I'll end it here, I think Microsoft and their studios can work up to that. I think they can earn that themselves. It's not easy though, and it takes time. And I'm hoping, and I'm sure Xbox fans are hoping the same thing, that going into this generation, further into this generation, once Xbox really starts getting on a roll, is this it? Is this where they finally start to do that? Like they begin to achieve what it is that people have been hoping to see them achieve for a long time. We'll find out. Man, that was a long one, huh? Judah Zuck, you're saying, I feel it is your show and you should talk about what you like. Well, thank you so much for that, man. Thank you. Tony, saying Demon Souls and Bloodborne are also Sony exclusive IP. That's true. That is true. Great games. The copium is strong with this guy. Dude, Skynet, bro, what are you even talking about, man? Ain't nobody coping about anything over here. I'm talking about games, dude. That's all I'm talking about. Fabrice, again, you're saying the day xCloud will be better than Stadia, they will never need PlayStation. But as an Xbox fan, I like your channel and hate every other PlayStation channel because you have real facts. But sometimes I'm not really agreeing with you. Well, it's totally understandable, man. Like, I'm not saying what I'm saying to necessarily, like I said, get everybody. I'm not looking for everybody to agree with me, and I'm always open to hearing why people disagree. I just think that people, what they don't like about me, it's simple. I'm more of a PlayStation fan. I obviously have a preference and a bias towards PlayStation, but because I'm also very hard on Xbox, it's just perceived as like, dude, you're just a fanboy. Like, you'll never like anything Xbox does. You'll never give Xbox credit, and that's just simply not true. And that, I think that's what pisses me off with people. Not everybody, but when people basically, like, maybe they're new to my channel or they just ignore most of my content and they just hear one time when I'm like hard on Xbox, or a couple times, and they're like, well, this guy just clearly just hates Xbox and he can't stand him. And it's like, dude, you've not listened to my content. You've not listened to my channel. Those who've been here for a long time, you know that when Xbox does good shit, I come out, I'm like, damn, good shit, Xbox. But that's just it. They have to do good shit first. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not. And people are like, well, how come you're so much more lenient on PlayStations? Because, dude, they deliver the very thing that I want from any gaming company. And that is fantastic games, phenomenal gaming experiences. That's all I'm looking for. And Sony delivers that in spades. So, yeah, I'm not going to get as upset if Sony's like, well, our games are expensive. Like, okay, sure, they're expensive. But they're the games I want, man. That's just how it is. MBG is known biggest fanboy. He only talks and lies. I know, man, because everything I just said was just straight up a lie. I made all of it up. None of it's true. It's all false. I think for me it's about the delivery. I think that if I completely changed my tone and the way I come off, I think people would love me a lot more. Even the people who don't, I think they'd be like, oh, wow, this guy sounds totally reasonable. But I'm kind of like, I'm a little bit on the crazier side, I guess. And I'm very volatile. I know that. I know how I come off. But I like to think that, like, when the time comes, it's like, dude, I encourage anybody to go. Like, if you think I hate Xbox and you think like I don't give them credit and I only talk shit on them, go back to this time last year, watch my videos where I talk about Microsoft acquiring Bethesda. Okay, you'll see how I'm like, dude, this is huge. Like, this is a huge win for Microsoft. Like, this is crazy. It's like the biggest win I've ever seen for Microsoft. You think anybody will mention that, though? No, they won't do that. You think anybody will mention that I made a 20-minute video reaming PlayStation for what they tried to pull with Horizon? No. We don't talk about that. MBG, why reply to clowns? I don't even know, man. Sometimes it just catches my eye, Magnum Visuals are saying, it feels as if, though, Microsoft's problem is the lack of style. Steve Jobs outlined that. Yeah, I remember hearing that, where Steve Jobs was basically like, Xbox is, not Xbox, but just Microsoft, like, they're just bland, and I get that. I mean, look, I'm not expecting perfection from anybody or any company. It's just, I have my reasons why I have my own personal preferences here, and I just very much believe in them to the point where it's like, if somebody basically says to me, like, PlayStation, I think their games suck, and that's why I don't like them. I feel like, okay. Like, I literally have nothing to say to that, because it's like, that's clearly their opinion. But it's when it's like, you know what, man, MBG, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, PlayStation's games are trash and Game Pass. It's like, okay, whoa. Let me back you up there a little bit. All right, I got a couple things to say to that. I don't know. MBG is attracted to hate. You got me, man. You're saying your anti-PlayStation moments are few and far between, though. Yeah, I mean, look, there are times where I miss the mark. Like, I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm always laser focused. So a good example is, like, recently the news came out that the CMOS, is it CMOS or CMOS? I don't know how to say it. CMOS battery. That problem was fixed with the PS4. And I remember, like, people were going nuts about that, dude. And I guess I was just, like, not really understanding. I don't know if it was a lack of understanding, but I just didn't see the other side. Like, this is where, once I was able to kind of see the other viewpoint, I became, like, my feelings on the matter changed. So with the CMOS battery, basically, once that dies and you have a PS4, even if, you have disc games, you won't be able to play them. And Sony fixed that. And I just remember, like, this was something that people were freaking out about. They're like, Sony, what the actual F, man? Like, what are you doing? And at that time, I was like, dude, people are being a bunch of babies right now. That's the attitude I had. I'm like, people are crying over this dumb thing that I don't think anybody realistically cares about. And then I found out, whoa. Apparently, dude, a lot of people care about this. This is a big deal to a lot of people. And I'm like, okay. I'm willing to hear it out. Like, what's going on here? Why is it that big of a deal? And even when I hear it, it's like, okay. That's totally fair. I get it. Sony, all right, if you can fix it, because this just seems like an unnecessary problem. People are really upset. Like, I'm not going to be the guy 20 years from now. When, who's breaking out my PS4 and being like, all right, playing some God of War on my PS4 for some reason. But that's where I feel like, okay, now I'm being kind of a dick and I'm being condescending, because there's a lot of people, or at least a fair amount of people, who are like, dude, I love playing on old hardware. Like, what, like, why are you hating on playing old hardware? Like, this is a thing that Sony should fix. So if 20 years from now I want to play my PS4, if my battery's dead, doesn't matter, I want to play it. And I'm like, you know what? That's totally, you're right. You're totally right. And so basically what people were saying is like, dude, you need to be harder on PlayStation because it can only benefit us in this scenario. And that's where I realized, like, okay, so I may not care at all, but there's enough people out there that are telling me, like, look, this is why you should care, man. Like, this is why you should just kind of turn to Sony and be like, Sony, you should do something about this, because it may help. It could help us. Like, you may not want to play your PS4 down the line, but what if we do? And that's where I kind of realized, you know what? Yeah. In those cases, like, I'm wrong. You know, it's like when I talk about, retro gaming is its own genre. And that's where I feel like, yeah, and I'm like, I'm being totally ignorant. I'm coming off as a complete dickhead because it's like I'm basically just shitting all over retro gaming and condescending it. And it's pissing them off because they're like, dude, we care about this. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Like, I'm just being an ignorant dick right now. Like, straight up. Sorry to, be so vulgar, but it's like, that's just true, And so, I'm always open to hearing what other people have to say and constructive criticism. And sometimes if people need to be harsh in some ways, like I see people, they make video, not often, but they make videos on me, like literally just completely shitting all over me. And I'm like, that's not helping me, man. Like that, like if you want me to see a different perspective and point of view, like just completely annihilating me, that's just going to make me feel like I got to either become defensive or not even listen, because this is just ridiculous. But it's like, if you actually have a valid point and there's something you really feel like you can get across and you think it's a good point and it completely like eradicates mine, just convey it in a respectful way. I'll listen. You know what I mean? Like, I'll listen to what you're saying and be like, oh, I didn't see it from that perspective. Now I can. And I think you might be right. Yeah. Are you saying MVG, the internet is a double-edged sword? That's true. It is. The fact that you realize that is the reason is why I like you and your channel. Well, thank you. I try to be, I'm trying to be as self-aware as I can and understand that I have my limitations. I'm only human. I'm not going to be perfect. I'm not out here trying to make everybody my best friend. And I know that there's going to be people that I just don't get along with in general. But I feel like if I can at least try my best to be as open-minded as I can, I'm a bit of a, abrasive person at times, and I've just embraced that that's just who I am as a person at times, So, for anybody asking, I did actually cover the CMOS battery thing. We covered that in one of my news videos that I put out last week. So I was sure to cover that, let everybody know, because I think it's good news. Definitely good. People are happy about that. Judah Zuck, again, you're saying it's because you are fair and balanced. I like your channel, and I'm a person who mostly plays on Xbox. Well, thank you so much. See, that's what makes me feel good. A lot of times is I love to see like that there are people where even your preferred platform is the opposite one. And I am hard on Xbox here, man, but I appreciate it. I do. Oh, yeah, okay. So I see. Yeah, guys, I don't think Mystic gave me a shout out. Because I'm 100% certain he was talking about MV as in Victor G. That's Modern Vintage Gamer. He made a video recently covering this, and he actually was one of the ones that made a video calling Sony out on it as well. And I'm pretty sure he was referring to MVG. And that used to confuse me too. I'm like, wait, are they talking about me? And I'm like, oh, no, MVG, Modern Vintage Gamer. So I'm pretty sure that's who he was shouting out, because I see some people mentioning that. For the longest time, I thought you were part of Spawncast for that reason. Yeah, dude. I mean, MVG, MBG. I mean, dude, if Mystic gave me a shout out, that's great. I'm assuming he didn't, because I'm pretty sure it was MVG. I don't know why he would give me a shout out. I'm just saying that, like, so yeah. Let me see here. Jerome, you're saying you used to be an Xbox guy. What made you what made you a fan? What was your favorite games? For me, I was one of those people that really got sucked into the Xbox 360 era, all the hype surrounding that. Believe it or not, Left 4 Dead was, I think, one of the main reasons I'm like, yo, I can only play this game on Xbox, and this game is me. Like, this game is speaking to me like no other game. And from that point, I fully embraced Xbox. I stuck with Xbox, and there were a lot of games. Honestly, I know this sounds crazy, but I didn't really get into Xbox exclusives. Like, I was literally that guy where I'm like, I'm a multi-plat Xbox 360 player. And then I really started to kind of get into exclusive games, or at least the exclusive games that Xbox was offering with the launch of the Xbox One, because games like, I remember Rise, Son of Rome, and Titanfall, like, they were really like, oh, okay, I'm not the biggest Halo fan, but that's not Halo. You know, I'm not the biggest Gears fan, and Rise, Son of Rome, that's not looking like Gears. And so they really started to put out these games where I'm like, okay, these look interesting. So that's kind of like, you know, my whole thing. And you know, exclusive games became more important to me because I started to realize, like, actually there was, every time I would go to a console, it was for an exclusive game. Like, I did play PS3, and the sole reason I played PS3 was Metal Gear Solid 4, you know, and I went to Xbox 360. My sole reason for doing that was because that was the only console that was offering Left 4 Dead. So, all right. But thank you guys for the super chats, by the way. They really are going a long way here. All right, so we're going to close out this podcast with hold on one sec. Sorry, guys. All right, I'm going to close out this podcast with five more community submissions, okay? So, once again, do me a big favor. Please hit the like button to help the stream out. We are at, let me see, 567 likes, which is awesome. We're at 50 dislikes, which I'm not surprised about that. Look, I know that there are people listening to this. They're like, shut the F up about Xbox. I get it. All right. I'm not, look, I know this sounds weird, but if you don't like the stream, you can hit the dislike button. I'm not saying this to dissuade anybody, but it's just the hard truth. Like, if you're disliking the content, you are helping my content. That counts as engagement. So, I mean, if you're not enjoying it, you can let me know, and that's fine. Like, it's engagement. That's what I'm looking for. But I would prefer you hit the like button if you're enjoying it. Okay, so the final five here, we have Vincent, and he says, for the past few years, I've really enjoyed watching your content and low-key engaging with the community. I feel like I've seen some real positive growth in how you engage with critical opinions. So the question, in your plans for where you want to take the channel and community, are you interested in creating a more welcoming environment for people who are critical of Sony and or MBG? If yes, what steps would you want to take to achieve that, and where would you want to draw the line? Big fan, and much love to you and the fam. Thank you so much, Vincent. Really great question I think he brings up here, because I think that this is something a lot of my audience are also wondering, because I've kind of had a formula here on the channel for a long time that we've pretty much stuck to very closely. It hasn't changed all that much. And this is always it's not difficult for me to think about this, but it's always kind of difficult, I think, for anybody to really map out the future. But I do have plans for the channel, and those plans mostly go as follows. So obviously, I want my channel to be as welcoming as it possibly can be, but I also want it to be as organic and natural and real as it can be. And sometimes those two things don't necessarily mix together very well. And so my thing is, like, I don't want to become less opinionated. If I became less opinionated, I could actually probably grow my channel quicker, because it's just easier to just appeal to people on different levels. Like, I could find different types of content to make that's not opinion based, right? But I'm fully into the PlayStation ecosystem. I frankly just don't play on any other gaming ecosystem. I'm just not interested. Like, I feel like I'm just the type of person where wherever I play, I want that to be like my go-to. I know it's pretty much like I'm purposely limiting myself, but it's because I just want my focus to be on one thing, if that makes sense. Which sounds strange because we've spent so much time talking about Xbox, but it's because I believe that Xbox has a huge influence on Sony. I know that some people don't like to hear that. They're like, Sony doesn't care. That's why I talk a lot about Xbox, even though I don't really engage with Xbox that much. But my hope is also that Xbox will appeal to me with some games at some point where I'm like, okay, now I'm seeing some absolute must-play games. I got to go play some of these games on Xbox, you know? But I know I am limiting myself, but it's because I'm not trying to be that person where it's like, hey guys, I'm your go-to source for all gaming news. Like suddenly I'm going to start covering like Nintendo news and all Xbox news and PC news. I feel like there's a lot of channels that already do that. And so what I want to do is I want to kind of be one of those go-to PlayStation channels. That's what we've established here. And that's what I enjoy. Would I like the channel to grow even more? Would I love to be at 300,000 subs and each of my news videos are getting like 50K, 80K views? Absolutely. But I don't want to do that if it's something like that's not my main driving factor, I guess is what I'm trying to say on the channel here. I don't want it to be, well, what will get me the most views? What will get me the most subscribers? Because the truth is that was my end game and that was my ultimate goal. Community would kind of take a back seat because there's a million ways for me to achieve that and become more, I guess you could say, you say MVG, the slowest growing channel on YouTube. No, I don't think, dude, I'm not the slowest growing. I will admit it's been a little bit slower lately, and I've thought like, should I branch out? But that's just it, man, is it's like, why would I be doing that? Am I branching out because I actually want to and I'm interested in it? Or is it because I just want more numbers? That's the key here. And no, I don't want to just do what I do for more numbers. That's why I put such a heavy emphasis on the community we have, because even though we're not the biggest, like I think we're pretty tight knit here. I think that we have a pretty great community here that, I know you guys enjoy the content I produce and I enjoy interacting with you. And I think I'll find different ways to grow going forward. Right now, this whole year, just to be completely transparent with you guys, this entire year has felt like like just a complete cluster in terms of just what's been going on in like my personal life and just the way things have been going down. It hasn't all been bad. There's a lot of things that have been going good, but I feel like my focus for this year on the channel has essentially been, okay, we established something pretty great last year, and this year I want to focus on maintaining that and growing that to the best of my ability, but mostly maintaining it, right? And just keeping it going and trying to also, expand in some ways where I feel like I can. And so I feel like 2022, I don't know exactly what the plans are. Like, I don't have some kind of big scheme in my head where it's like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But I feel like I'm going to be going into the remainder of this year and specifically 2022 with this kind of open mind of like, dude, I'm excited for PlayStation. I'm enjoying PlayStation. And I really feel like I want to kind of reconnect with games in a different way. That's not to say that I haven't been doing that this year, but things have just felt pretty off this year for me. I don't know how to explain it. Just things are not, they just felt off. I feel like we all kind of have those off times in our lives where it's like things are just not flowing the way I thought they would or the way I wanted them to. And I feel like that's just kind of the nature of life, where you have these off periods of in certain moments of your life where you kind of just have to be like, well, I have to just get through this. And we'll get through it and we'll see, what lies ahead and take it as it comes. You know what I mean? So hopefully, that answers your question, man. Just to give a simplified answer, obviously I plan to grow the channel. I plan to experiment and do some different things. Even if it might not seem like it right now, that's always something that's going on in my mind. So yeah. Um, Fun fact, I will tell you that talking about the trajectory of my channel before I move on to the next question. Interestingly enough, everything has happened this entire year on the channel. What happened with the whole blue box situation, dude? Like that was like I don't know what to call it. Like people were just super interested in that, and that was super easy for me to cover because there's people who think like, dude, you were just covering that because you were getting views. Like, dude, no, I wasn't. I was covering that shit because it was interesting as hell, and it was like right up my alley, man. Like that was as organic and natural as it gets in terms of like, yo, what is this? This interests me. What's going on here? It's unfortunate the way it ended. I mean, I guess it's over, right? Like, but during that time, I was gaining a bunch of new people, and they were like, yo, this dude's covering this situation, and everybody likes the mystery, and I was enjoying it too. And it was weird. Like, I feel like, as crazy as it sounds, when this year's over, I'm going to look back on 2021 and be like, that was the year with that blue box thing. Like, that was the weirdest thing that ever happened. And it was just so fun. And I think it was just so bizarre that everybody enjoyed it. So we did do something different this year. I didn't expect it. I don't think anybody did. But you're saying that was fun to witness. You did get me down the rabbit hole hard when that happened. Yeah, man, that was a good time. So we're going to move on to the next community question before this podcast ends up being 3.5 hours long. Next, Doc 1851 says, MBG, why do you feel that PlayStation gets a bad rap for $10 upgrades with no BS, yet it is okay for Xbox to have predatory, grindy microtransactions in Halo, Gears, and Forza, as well as releasing games unfinished, broken, and lacking in content? Looking at Sea of Thieves, State of Decay 2, Halo Infinite, etc. Food for thought, Halo 3 released almost 3 years after Halo 2 and launched complete. Only map packs came later. Meanwhile, Halo Infinite will release with their longest dev cycle yet and will launch incomplete with a third of the game that Halo 3 was. Bet those microtransactions will work day one, though. So obviously, next Doc is going in hard on Microsoft here, but I do think he brings up a good question. So why do I think Sony gets a bad rap for the $10 upgrades? To be as clear cut as I can, I think it's just because when you look at the dynamic at play between Microsoft's approach and Sony's, they're night and day. Sony, there's no if, ands, or buts about it. They want you to pay a premium price for your games, and they drew that line in the sand, and they made it clear. I mean, it was already the established normal $60. That's how it was. And then Microsoft came in and like, you know what, we're going to shake things up. We're going to do this thing called Game Pass. We're also going to do smart delivery, free upgrades, just taking this completely different approach that, yeah, it is more pro-consumer, and it is much more versatile in how it can make, life easier for gamers. It's like, I don't have to worry about upgrading. But you do point out some things here that are, worth highlighting, where it's like, yeah, I mean, I feel like people, they do kind of not, they don't acknowledge some of this other stuff where it's like, everybody was like, oh, I can't stand service games. I'm tired of service games. And then Halo Infinite, I know we're bringing it up again, but it's like, it's a service game. Sony's going to have their service games as well. I'm not denying that. But it's like, it is worth noting that for a lot of Sony's games that they are asking for a premium price for, or maybe they are asking for a $10 upgrade, they're not really asking for anything beyond that. And I think that there is something, there is something worth mentioning there where it's like, it's not perfect on either side. Should games have microtransactions? It would be fantastic if they didn't. They're going to have them anyway. Should Sony charge for upgrades? It would be great if they didn't, but they're going to do it. And so I feel like you kind of have to go through it with a fine-tooth comb and like find, well, okay, so there's this pro, and then there's this con, and then there's this pro, but there's this con. And I feel like with Sony, the pros and the cons are: pro, you are going to be getting a quality experience. Con, you're going to be paying a pretty penny for that experience. Um, you know, con, you're going to have to pay $10 for this upgrade if you want it. Pro, that's pretty much all we're going to ask you for. We're not going to like rent, shove microtransactions in your face and ask you to buy this and buy that and buy this, right? That might change though. Like I don't know. Sony's plans are to go down the multiplayer route, man. So it's like, I'm not going to sit here and say that, well, Sony doesn't do microtransactions. Microsoft does. I'm pretty sure Sony's going down the microtransaction route as well with their multiplayer, Last of Us game and whatnot. So, I think it's just an optics game, man. Like that's all it comes down to. You're saying food for thought. You're telling me like, look at Halo 3 compared to Halo Infinite. It's just, it's the optics, man. It's Microsoft has created a scenario where people are not as hard on them anymore because Microsoft has effectively said, hey, we're your friend. Like, we're not going to charge you as much money. We're going to make it easier for you to get access to these games. And it's like, it inherently makes people feel like, well, okay, I guess it doesn't have to be the best game I ever play. I mean, I'm only paying $10 to play it. It has microtransactions. That's okay. It's all right, and I feel like it's just people and naturally are just like, Microsoft has just positioned themselves, optically speaking, as the good guys. Sony seems to be content to look like the villain. You're saying I missed Freeze Vamp's super chat? I'm going to check my super chats real quick. The last super chat I have is from Jerome. I don't see any. I think Freeze Vamp. I don't know. I'll try to get to your question, buddy, if I'm able to. I don't think there was a super chat, but if I happen to catch it, I'll mention it. And so I guess to answer your question, I think the reason why Sony gets a bad rap is because they've just kind of embraced like, hey, we're the villains, we're the bad guys. We are doing things the traditional way, and we're just going to get our money in the traditional way. And we're not trying to be your friend. We're trying to be the brand that you like and that you're going to support with your money. Like that's, and Microsoft isn't doing that at all. Microsoft has positioned themselves as the literal opposite, optically speaking, where it's like, we're your friend. We're not going to charge you as much money, but you're going to get a very different product in return. So, again, I feel like it's just best for everybody to kind of comb through it on your own and just decide for yourself, like between the pros and the cons, which type of business model, which type of, I guess you could say, what's valuable to you. That's the best way I could put it. So, because, the truth is, and this is the last thing I'll say before moving to the next question, not everybody is as hard on PlayStation. It just seems like more people now are because of that. Next question, Hanzo Reza, if I'm saying your name correctly, you're saying, why do people feel that Metacritic is the holy grail of making their own decision into whether they buy a game or not, or even reviews? Isn't our own judgment more important than others who are paid to do a job, paid to tell you things too, / you're saying looking at UEA, Ubisoft, and all of the Call of Duty makers. I took a chance on some in the past as they reviewed well, and I was wrong going down that road. Deathloop wasn't that masterpiece being touted either. Recent example, 7 out of 10 tops. Vice versa, reviewed bad, but I loved my time playing an actual game. He's referencing games like Days Gone and Alien Isolation Show. So essentially what Hanzo is trying to say here is he's basically saying, why are review scores and Metacritic scores held so high as the essentially be all end all when it comes to whether or not a game is actually good objectively? And I think that's the problem there, is that none of this is objective. I mean, there's only so many things that can be objective until it just you enter that phase where it's like now you're in subjective territory. So a good example of this is, okay, let's take God of War 2018. I think it's just a good. I feel like God of War 2018. You know what? No, let's not do God of War 2018. Let's do Red Dead Redemption 2. Objectively speaking, I think I don't know why I'm saying I think. Objectively speaking, Red Dead Redemption 2 is a high quality game. There are things that were created in that game, things that were done by Rockstar to objectively make it a high quality game. Nobody can argue that. There's no argument. You can't argue whether or not it's a high quality game. It is 100%. It's a high quality game. But then when somebody says, well, what if like it is a high quality game, but I didn't like it? And they say, well, I just didn't like the pacing of the story, or I didn't like how cumbersome it felt to, I don't know, do certain things in the game. I didn't like just the mechanics. I didn't, whatever it may be. Then it's subjective at that point where, and that's what makes this whole conversation difficult, where you really shouldn't ever look at what somebody else is saying about a game, or about anything. And this conversation gets super interesting when you take any kind of media, right? Like you talk about movies. What happens if you don't hear a single opinion? What happens? And I wonder, guys, let me know in the chat, how many people have ever went into something and you haven't heard or seen anything? Anything. Like, what if you just went to the movie theater one day and you decided to watch a movie, like you're just looking at the movies and the times, and you're like, well, this movie is starting in a couple minutes. I'm going to watch this. And you never heard of that movie in your life. You never heard of that movie in your life. Don't know what it is. Don't even know what it's about. You go, get your popcorn, sit down, watch it. It's 2 hours. You come out, you're like, man, that was really good. I really like that movie. And then out of curiosity, you're like, okay, I'm going to go see what other people were saying about this movie. I never heard of it. I didn't even know what it was. And you find out that it's like sitting at like a 10% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it just got slammed, and people are like, this is the worst movie ever. And you're like your entire perception of that movie is now altered, whether you want it to be or not, because you now have the knowledge that the majority of reviewers and people didn't like this. But it's so funny to think that, like, when you were kind of in your own world and in your own headspace and you're just focused in on something, you see what I'm saying? And I guess it's just the question that I think is being posed here, because I'm starting to, I feel like I'm starting to sound, I don't know, some people say I sound stupid all the time, but I feel like I'm having a hard time getting my words out today. The question I feel like can be boiled down to, why do we allow other people's opinions to influence us so much? And that is I don't know. I feel like my answer to that is, that's just human nature. Because I feel like we've all experienced that moment where when I click on a YouTube video and it's an interesting YouTube video, and then I scroll down to the comment section to see what are the commenters saying, and then suddenly I read 3, 4, 5 of the top comments, and that inherently alters my view and perception of what the video may have been or what it may have been about. It's difficult, man. I mean, it's just the way it is. I wish, and I mean this, I really wish that I could just go about my life not giving a damn about anyone or anything and what they have to say. I know that sounds extreme, but like it's like almost impossible to do that. Like, somebody is going to have an influence on you. And I just feel like if you try to limit that, you'll probably get a hell of a lot more enjoyment in life, And I know that there's a great irony in what I'm saying right now, because you're all listening to me and you're all tuning in to hear my opinion. But it's like, if somebody were to have never heard of Xbox in their life, and then they tune into this specific episode of the podcast, and they're like, man, this Xbox thing sounds horrible. When they tuned into somebody else's podcast who really likes Xbox, you're like, man, this Xbox thing sounds great. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just the nature of communication, man. It's just the nature of communication. I know I'm getting like deeper into it than probably we need to, but it is fascinating because I do oftentimes wonder like what, and I get annoyed because I want to experience it, but I'm not disciplined enough. You know what I mean? Like I want to know what it would be like to play a game like Horizon Forbidden West and just, that's a bad example because I covered it on my channel, but like, okay, Back for Blood is a good example. Like Back for Blood's coming out soon. And I remember when that came out, I was playing it and I was like, this game is pretty good. Like I'm enjoying it. Like I'm enjoying this beta. It's not the best and I'm not like blown away, but I'm having a good time. And, I do that thing that I always do where I'm like, okay, now let's go see what the internet has to say. Big mistake. It's always a mistake to do that. And I started looking at what people were saying and they're like, this is garbage. Like this is worse than Left 4 Dead. And they started pointing out all of these little things that I didn't even notice. And I'm like, actually, okay, well, now that you're making me aware of it, it all comes out, did you ever hear the saying, ignorance is bliss? I feel like that's what it comes down to, man. Sometimes it depends on how perceptive you are of things. There could be some serious problems with a game that maybe you're just not cognizant of. And maybe it's better that you're not. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like one of the biggest problems that we as human beings do, we overanalyze, we overthink, and it just creates unnecessary, I don't know. I don't want to say problems, but I guess you could just say it makes us overly critical. Ignorance is bliss, so my life is misery. Yeah, I don't know. One of the and I'm going to move on to the next question because we only got 2 more left here, but one of the situations, I want to tell you guys this story. For me, it was Metal Gear Solid 4. Okay? When I played that game, I was in my own world. This was like before I got like into the internet and I was like following anything. The only way I was paying attention to Metal Gear Solid 4 was I was seeing some occasional trailers on TV. I get maybe it was like G4 or something. I don't remember. But I knew the game existed. And I would see it in magazines and I would read about it and I would just be so excited. And when that game came out, dude, my expectations were like as high as they could possibly be. I mean, they were like through the roof, dude. I've never been more excited for, I don't know, it was like certain time and place situation where my excitement for MGS4 was like, this is going to be the greatest game I ever play. And somehow, some way, it exceeded my expectations. When I was done with Metal Gear Solid 4 and I experienced that story, and then I played the Metal Gear Online for months and months, dude, I was in my glory, man. Like that was the greatest thing I ever played. And then years later, I came across like I became aware that there's a whole group of people that hate MGS4 and they're like, this game is a joke. I can't believe it. This game is just fan service for the sake of fan service. And I just watched all these critiques on it. And I was like, oh my God, like I had no idea that there was this whole group of people that just couldn't stand this game. And this whole time I'm like in my own world. I'm like, this is the greatest thing I ever played. And it's almost like I kind of wish I never heard that because it didn't ruin anything, but it's just like, I can't help but look at MGS4 just slightly different now, knowing that I thought everybody loved MGS4. Like I thought that this was like the greatest game ever made, and there's a whole group of Metal Gear fans who were like, this game is trash, dude. And I'm like, no, like, what are you talking about? Leo Jimmy, you're saying MBG is for validation, nothing more. It is for validation, nothing more. Reviews, that is. And reviews and Metacritic are more tools for the console war. Good to play games blind anyway. Yeah, dude, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, man. I've really been considering like really readjusting my approach to how I play video games. Not just for my channel. I mean, it would greatly change my channel like in a big way, but mainly for myself and my own gaming life, I guess you could say. And not just video games, but any media. I really want to kind of stay off the internet more often than I do, So that's my little story about MGS4. And so we have the next question in line here. We have two more. Adrian D are saying, how did the narrative that PS5 has no games gain traction? I personally can't understand it. From where I'm sitting, it looks like the Xbox Series X has no games, no exclusives besides the medium. So I saw this question, and Adrian D, I'm going to be honest with you, man. I picked your question because it got some upvotes. And I'm just going to nip this in the bud, dude. I don't see that narrative being brought up. And if I do ever see that being brought up, it's literally just being brought up by people who are very clearly either trolling or just hardcore fanboys of a different platform. They just don't like PlayStation and they just want to, I don't know, they just want to get people worked up and say something ridiculous. I have not seen really many people at all seriously say PlayStation has no games. However, I have seen some people who are PlayStation fans be a little bit critical towards PlayStation, being like, I don't know, like there's not enough PS5 only games, or there's not as many games that are as appealing to me as I would have expected. And I feel like those are, again, those are like totally valid arguments, but those are more subjective. I feel like objectively, there's literally like people who have made charts like showing like these are all the games that have been released, on PS5 as either full exclusives, timed exclusives, console exclusives, and it's a huge list. And I feel like, you talk about the Xbox Series X being the one that's struggling, and that's just the truth, man. That's the objective truth. Up until just recently, Xbox Series X really hasn't had much. It's going to have a lot. It's going to grow, but yeah, I think that Phil Spencer, as well as the Xbox fan base, they were eager to end this conversation of like Xbox has no games. And it's like, well, you can't say that anymore. Look at all these studios we got. We're going to have a ton of games. I don't recall many people ever like really saying in a serious manner that PlayStation 5 has no games. So if you're seeing that gain traction anywhere, I'm going to recommend not really paying attention to it or giving it any attention at all, because to me, that just seems like a very isolated group of individuals who are, I guess, just, I don't know. I guess if you find enough people to say the same things back and forth, like PlayStation has no games, you're right, dude. PlayStation has no games. Got the guy over in the corner. PS5's got no games, bro. You know it. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're kind of in their own little thing there. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. But that's my answer to your question, Adrian D. And the final question comes from Muhammad Muhid Khan. Hopefully I said your name correctly. And he says, what are your thoughts on Herman Hulst calling PlayStation Studios developers storytellers instead of game makers? In my opinion, story shouldn't be the main selling point of a game, as I personally play games to experience the gameplay mechanics, and a good story is just a bonus. So I actually thought this was a pretty interesting question. I haven't seen many people bring this up. This is actually the first time I've come across somebody asking a question like this. And I have to admit to you, like, I wasn't really paying attention to that. Like, that's not even a thought that crossed my mind. If I had to answer this, what I would say is I think the reason why Herman Hulst chose to use the words storytellers when describing PlayStation Studios, I think it's to kind of reinforce the notion that they focus heavily on single player games. That's the strength in all of these single player games. They all share a commonality, that being that they're all telling a story. For some people, the story lands and the story is the main reason why they love the game. For others, it's the literal opposite. It's something where it's like, it's just an extra. And for you, Muhammad, it seems like the story is just a bonus and you get excited for a game like, say, like God of War Ragnarok, more so for the gameplay experience that you're going to get and the mechanics that you're going to experience, more so than the story, but you just like having the story there. I think that Herman Hulst focused on that and used those words specifically because, and this is just an assumption, it's because now more than ever, it's becoming clear that Sony is going to be focusing much more heavily on multiplayer, and there's going to be way more multiplayer games. And it sounds like they want to try to incorporate story into these multiplayer games, but that's just the thing it's doing, right? Like that's the thing that they're focusing on top of their single player games. But another reason is I think Herman Hulst, I think wants to position it that way because, and this is just the reality, like, you don't get the same type of stories told when it comes to Nintendo exclusives. You're not going to get like a Last of Us story from Nintendo. You're just not. But the same can also be said for Microsoft. As of right now, Microsoft has not produced, nor has Nintendo produced stories that are being told in these single player games that are on the same level. You know, so I feel like that's why Herman Hulse is like, I'm going to use these words because this is a great strength we have that our competition simply doesn't have, at least not yet anyway. That's my guess. Jared Rose, you're saying PS5 has Hassan Karaman. Yeah. I don't know what that means anymore, man. I really don't know what that means anymore. But that's pretty much all I have for you guys. That's going to do it for this episode. This was a little bit of a different episode. I did 10 community submission questions. That's literally double than than what we normally do or what I've done in the past. But that's because we were very light on topics. The main topic we had to discuss was, Xbox related. So I hope you guys did enjoy the podcast. I always appreciate the support you guys show what I do here on the channel. So thank you to everybody who donated a super chat. Thank you to all of my members. Thank you to anybody who just hung out with me. Before you head out and enjoy the rest of your Sunday, please do me one last favor. Just make sure you hit that like button if you haven't. It really does help these podcasts out. Let's see if we can get up to 700, maybe 750. I don't know if that's possible, but I appreciate it. And so, yeah, we'll have to see what goes down over the next week. Ivan Owl, you're saying, hi, MBG. Sorry for joining now. Will I upgrade the SSD in my PS5? As of right now, I have no plans to upgrade my SSD. Excuse me, because I have not experienced any issues with storage. But if that ever becomes a problem, I will likely upgrade my SSD, and I'll let you guys know about it. So that's my answer. No problem joining late, man. You'll be able to enjoy it after the fact. And so, yeah, that's episode 77 in the books. I will be here again, same time, same place next Sunday, if everything goes smoothly, with episode 78. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But that does it, guys. I'm going to go chill for the rest of the day. Feeling pretty tired, pretty spent. So, thank you for hanging out with me. Until next time, guys, take care.